Okay, this should be Summoning Insight, episode 55. I'm Thorin, usual host. Oh, by the way, thanks to Alpha Draft, top right-hand corner, for all the money. I love money. I need money. It's just a fact of life, isn't it? You know, as long as we live in a resource-based economy with capitalism and fiat currency based on the American dollar, then we will actually need money. Until China gets rid of all those dollars, Monty, we will need money. Therefore, we will love Alpha Draft and appreciate what they do for us in giving us the money to stay alive. So they probably didn't even know. Like I'm actually going off a script that they send me here, Monty. Like it's weird. I know that's what they wanted me to say. You know. So click the links below if you also want, while living in a fiat currency based society, funded by China, propped up, to buy things that you can do like fantasy, such as League of Legends, CS:GO, Smite, Dota 2. If you play any of those games.
Even
I do.
Hearthstone.
Sometimes I just wreck like some of the world's head analysts straight up 1v1. It's like, but we'll get to that later, maybe. That's not even this show, Monty, but I might just bring it up anyway. So anyway, how are you doing, my friend Monty?
I'm doing okay.
Okay, very enthusiastic. Okay, they pay him to look good on camera like that. So our guest this week, Monty, on episode 55 of Summoning Insight, it's a returning guest. Now, you guys probably really enjoyed episode 34 when he was on. He's obviously we all know he won the season 1 championship. He's going to be playing in the semi-finals soon with Origin. It's Expeke. Oh no, fuck! I've done it. The classic mistake. What have I done? I've booked the show wrong, Monty. Fuck. What? So who was this guy? Oh no, I'm just joking, of course. Okay, so our guest is Shakarez. He used to be, I believe, like an analyst for Liquid. Was it back when they were Curse?
No, it was when they turned to Liquid. Okay. So Spring Split, January through March.
Hey, they didn't turn to Liquid. They haven't been.
No, they melted down, Monty.
Puddle of tears yet. We have to wait for this weekend for that to happen.
So he was the analyst for TL a while ago. Now he's the analyst for INTZ, which is a Brazilian team for anyone who doesn't follow Brazil. So, Renato, my friend, how you do? How you play, man?
Doing pretty well. Wasn't expecting the Expeke meme, but I've learned to embrace it.
You gotta go with what you got.
Yeah.
It's okay. I mean, it's actually okay if you never actually learn about INTZ if you're watching the show and speak English, because now they can't go to the World Championships, and that's kind of where we're at right now. The knowledge isn't actually necessary.
The burn.
So let me start here. So let me ask you this first of all. So I remember I was on Twitter one day, and Monte Cristo just comes on.
I was on Twitter one day.
Yeah, just on Twitter one day. And Monte just says, just comes out of nowhere, and he's just like, yeah, INTZ have been in America, they're shitting on everyone in scrims, right in their faces. And I'm like, okay. And then that day was like the final of the CB LOL, which is the Brazilian league. And then I'm like, oh, okay, this INTZ team must be pretty strong. Like, let's check them out, maybe see them at Worlds or something. And then I remember Payne, who all I know about Payne, I mean, this is a joke, obviously. I've actually seen them play games. But I'm going to say that all I know about Payne is that apparently one of their players legitimately likes Payne and so repeatedly has League of Legends lore tattooed onto his body. Like, that's all I know about Payne, okay? So I'm not off to a good start there, okay? Like, if all I knew about some other team was that some guy had his, like, a girder welded through his dick, then that wouldn't be like a good start. And it's not that they're good at the game, So now I look at the game, and they're just like 3-0, clean sweep. And I'm like, okay, there's two conclusions I can take from this. One, Monty's overhyped INTZ, or maybe Payne is just better than everyone in the whole West. Maybe INTZ really is shitting on everyone's scrims, and Payne is just like the uber gods, So set the scene for where CB LOL is now, Shakarez. Was this an upset?
I don't know if I would call it an upset. Obviously, we were not the fan favorites. Fan favorites were Payne, like, by far. They have the biggest fan base here. They're like the TSM of Brazil, for those who don't follow the scene. I thought we had a better chances, but obviously that didn't turn out well. But even though it was a 3-0, it was a fairly close 3-0.
It was.
I guess, some things went wrong, but overall, I'm still proud of the guys for their performance. I think it was pretty good. But yeah, didn't work out this time. For those of you who don't know, INTZ won the last split, but then lost in the Invitational to get to MSI, to Besiktas. But yeah, this time it didn't work out. But I'd say the Brazilian scene right now is at their strongest point, where you have like 3 clear-cut top 3 teams, and then you have the rest of the league. So I'd say it's a bit comparable. I won't say it's the same level of play, but I'd say it's a bit comparable to Taiwan, where you have AHQ, HKE, and I'd say third would be like Flash Wolves, yeah. And then you have some teams that sometimes pull upsets, like our sister team. But yeah, I'd say we have 3 top teams that are a clear cut above the rest. But where I'd say any of these 3 teams could have represented Brazil well, but either way, whichever team would have won the finals on the 8th of August would have been a good representative for Worlds. I believe Pain will smash in the IWC qualifiers, because they only have to play Latin America and Russia. And the 2 teams that qualified were the 2 teams INTZ actually beat in spring back in the IWC Invitational. So Hard Random and KLG. So they're not really that strong of teams. So I think Pain will clean sweep and get to Worlds. And then it really depends on what they can do there. I guess it really depends on how the seeding works, and if they get like a group with a Chinese team and a Korean team, I think they're donezo. But if they get like an easier group, I actually think they have a minor chance of making it out. But I'd say like third place.
Here's the thing. Now that your team got wrecked 3-0, okay. Now suddenly you're so humble, like, listen, they were a fan favourite, but I can't really say if it was an upset or not. But in the fucking season, you wrecked everyone. Only lost 1 series, and that was to Keed. So it wasn't even the team you were playing. You didn't even have to play them in the final. You should have been a pretty big favourite, right?
Yeah. I guess like even the CBLL analysts, there was like this vote on a site, and they invited 18 analysts and players and all that, and we had the vote 17-1. So yeah, I guess in that regard,
I think that's a pretty
were
overwhelming.
Yeah. We were the favorites, and we were pretty confident after boot camp, but unfortunately it didn't work out.
So I Pain just clutch on LAN or something? What do you think?
I think for one, they have 5 really experienced players that know to play in front of a live crowd. I think that here at INTZ, apart from Alox, the support player, most players here are more inexperienced in terms of playing in front of a crowd. I'm not sure if it impacted them that much, because they've been through the Turkey experience where they had to play against 4,000 raging Besiktas fans chanting like maniacs, like football or soccer fans. But I'm not sure if that took a toll on them. I didn't talk to them about it yet. We kind of just stood silent when we came back to the house, and they just went home for a short vacation. But I'd say experience is definitely a factor. Those players are all very experienced. They've been in the scene forever now. They've won. I think some of the Pain players won the CB LOL in 2013. So they've been around for a long while, and I think that definitely made a change. Them definitely made a difference. And they also talked about how the psychologists helped a lot. They had a group of very famous psychologists here from Brazil to help them out for the finals, and I definitely think that may have helped their mentality. I remember talking to Pain's analyst, RNG. He's Scottish, and he constantly complains about Renegade's tag, because he says you're stealing his tag. Anyways.
Yeah, but the problem is the fact that you didn't name check him there means that no one on the show knows who he is. Therefore, I don't think he can actually claim some sort of like, you stole it from me. What is your name again? No one knows. Well, that's your problem right there, isn't it? You know.
I mean, at the same time, you could say that we took it from China. So
yeah, that's true. That's true.
See, I like to believe that is where Monty took it from. I like to think that he looked at the Chinese region, LPL, and he was like, looking at all these teams, you know, I'm an analyst, I've got to be fair, you know. Which team is mine most capable of being like? And which one am I trying to build towards in terms of a quality roster? And he was like, OMG, let's not be silly, you know, they've got a lot of money. He was thinking of WE for a while, but he was like, but they do have a history of a lot of success. And eventually he was coming down, you know, it was going to be between, like, you know, like, unlimited potential. He was like, I already tried that with a different team. I'm going to go with RNG because here's the key thing: just royally never give up. That's actually the theme of Monty's life. You know, the regal kind of air to him. He just never gives up, even though he inevitably must lose, just like Janair. So here's the thing, Shakarez. I know you're only in Brazilian region recently. Like you came in this year. Yeah. So when I ask you some stuff about last year, it might sound unfair because you weren't actually there in the region, but now that you've been involved in it, I want to kind of get your take on this because we're going to generally talk about Brazil anyway, okay, as well as your team. So one of the areas that there's obviously lots of misconception in the West about is people in the West, in theory, should know nothing about KaBuM, the one who beat Alliance last year at Worlds. Yep. That's all they should know, actually, is that they beat Alliance. Because I'm sure most people didn't even watch the other KaBuM games because they were obviously just going to be stomps and they weren't going to win them, you know. And then people know about the Alliance win. And so the problem is, in reality, no one knows. But everyone thinks they know because everyone either is an NA fan and they're like, yeah, KaBuM was just better and all this. Or they're a European fan and they're like, oh, it's just total fluke or whatever. Set the scene for me last year. Like, as far as I know, here's the reason why I was most shocked. Was that, like you mentioned before about Pain in the past. Okay, in the past, going back into 2013, Pain have actually had like upset wins. They were the ones who originally beat, I think it was like Millennium or someone. They beat someone like way back at an IEM in the early 2013. They beat IEM, I think, in a game. Oh, was that the same team? I think it was. They're the ones who got all the upsets, basically. All the weird upsets from the Brazil region. So I would expect a team like that would at least have a shot, you know. Whereas the thing was, KaBuM was sort of the team where they weren't even the best in Brazil. Somehow they got in through the wildcard spot anyway. It's like they had the miracle run there, and then they got into Worlds, and then they somehow got the upset. What do you think about this situation?
Yeah, so at the time, for those of you who didn't follow Brazil, both Keed and Pain had Korean players. Keed had Winged, who just played for Jinair in the BO3, and Suno, and Pain had Lactia, who I think is in LSPL. I'm not sure. Can't remember.
I actually don't know where he is right now. Let me look.
And Ole, was it?
Oh, yeah, he's playing for Showtime.
Ole is playing for Hong Kong eSports.
Exactly. So they had Lacti, who now is called Bing, and is playing for Showtime as AD carry. He used to be top lane. And they had Ole. And Ole is like super famous here in Brazil. Like people were watching Taiwan and tweeting about Taiwan today because HK Esports was playing. So he's one of those players who is very respected here in Brazil, and he used to be and he still is really good. So Keed and Pain were coming into the last Brazilian regional finals as like the two fan favorites with the Korean rosters and really strong players. And they both kind of get upset by CNB and KaBuM. CNB was a pretty strong team. CNB has had Revolta, who is now on Keed, Alox, who is now on INTZ, and Takeshi, who is now on Keed as well. So they had a pretty stacked roster. But like KaBuM, out of those four teams, was by far the least. They were the biggest underdog, right? And they managed to... They 2-0'd Keed, and then they 3-1 CNB for the finals. And I know, fair play to them, they won. But I still think that any other of those four teams would have been a better representative for Brazil at Worlds.
Because the problem is, when you set it up like that, with the whole thing of like, oh, Brazil as a whole region had just gotten better and this was their best team and they're the ones who upset the top European team, it kind of gives like an unrealistic expectation, whereas actually like you're saying here, there actually were better teams in Brazil most likely who just happened to lose that fight. Now coming into this year, what made it look bad, okay, is this international wildcard qualifier for the MSI, because okay, this was the one where INTZ went to that. And everyone was like, right, well, you know, Brazil's obviously way better than all these wildcard regions. Like, they're obviously better than Turkey, and then whoever the fuck those like weird European countries who get to put people in the tournament are. People were like, they should win this easily, and it was they fell on their face, right?
Yeah, they threw pretty hard. I think it was finals were 3-1. But like for the first part, INTZ got there the day before the event started, because for some reason Riot Brazil decided to space out the semis and the finals. So whoever won the finals, they won. They celebrated for like, who knows, like 1 hour, 2 hours, and they got on a plane to Turkey with, I think it wasn't even a direct flight. They had to do connections and flying through multiple time zones.
I mean, I suspect there aren't too many flights direct from Brazil to Turkey.
Yeah, Brazil.
Just saying, you know.
I think they had to do like, I'm not sure if it was 1 or 2 connections, but it doesn't matter. Like, they had to do a transatlantic flight. Got there some hours before the event and had to play completely jet lagged. So that's why they lost to Chiefs in the opening game. But they got their form back after 1-2 days, and they showed they were really strong. They even stomped Besiktas in like 22 minutes, I think, something like that. Like Revolt on Lee Sin just went ham, and he had like 5 kills at 10 minutes. So it was looking pretty good for Brazil at that invitational. But go to the brackets. I think INTZ in second. They had against Hard Random 3-1, and then Besiktas, who barely scraped it through group stage because they had the tiebreaker over Chiefs. They were the 4th seed. They played versus Bangkok Titans, and they stomped Bangkok Titans. And then the final was actually live with audience, whereas the whole tournament was played offline. Online. But with no audience. Final was played in a small arena, and obviously being in Turkey, the final was full of Turkish fans who were chanting Beşiktaş, Beşiktaş, and it was. I wasn't with the team at the time, but the guys told me it was insane. Like, they were a very coordinated fan base, and they really knew how to cheer for their players. But those series were like 2 of the 3 games INTZ lost. They had like a 10k gold lead, and they threw both games at Baron, I believe. Yeah. And it was for one, it was their first experience in front of a live crowd, so they were extremely inexperienced players. They were not used to that, and they were playing against the crowd as well. And they mentioned that the most annoying thing was if they would start Baron, the crowd would make such a noise that they could hear it. So if they could hear it, the other players from Besiktas could hear it as well.
Are you sure they were all actually Besiktas fans? They weren't like TSM fans who live in Turkey. Just no, you said they're the TSM of Turkey. It all makes sense. Okay, keep going, Shakarez.
Yeah. But yeah, they whenever they went for a Baron play or started posturing around Baron, the whole crowd would start chanting. And they would know that the enemy team was a Baron, so it was like a dreadful experience for them.
No, Shakarez, I've got to pull you up again. You got it wrong there. That's a good thing. You see, what happens is...
It's good.
You have to understand, that's what Riot wants. They want the crowd to be able to interact with the people. That's why you're not in booths, you know. If you're in a booth, maybe some of that would get blocked out. Maybe you wouldn't be able to see what people are doing. They want the crowd to be able to interact directly with the game, like a real sporting event, you know. Because in real sports, there's a way to directly interact and fuck the whole game up, right? Where you can be like, they're going to run play XXZY said, running back now, like, oh no, that's right, real sports is different. Oh fuck, yeah. I've just realised, excuse me, I've just got to get on the phone to Riot immediately and tell them that actually real sports is different. So, oh my god, it changes everything. This changes everything, Monty. I've changed the whole world. Okay, keep going.
The booth thing really annoyed me, but it was actually, you were joking saying it was a good thing, but I do think it was a good thing for the players going forward, because they had that experience, and they learned from it that sometimes they have to play against the crowd, and that's part of it. Like, whoever plays in NA plays against TSM, they know they have to play against the crowd because there are no booths. Go figure. But yeah, that was a pretty dreadful finals to watch, and it was pretty sad that they didn't get the MSI slot, because I think the whole view the teams have of Brazil changed, that the community has of Brazil changed because they didn't win those finals.
Listen, I'm really sad that they didn't get that slot, because here's why. When I put all these facts I've collected today together, So Monty says that INTZ now we're just stomping like even Western teams in scrims.
Stomping is not the word I used.
Yeah, he didn't use stomping, to be fair.
Whatever he said. Okay, did well. So he said they did well, stomping. So
Thank you.
that means that I'm now thinking to myself, oh my God, TSM fans probably think that was their worst day. But I now want to see a world in which this INTZ team goes there, and even INTZ also beats TSM at MSI, and it's just an overall sweep by everyone over them. See, that's the world I want to live in. I want to go. If I could go back in time, again, I wouldn't kill Hitler. Not even going to mention why. I'd just only change that one thing. I wouldn't even change things in my own career. I'd just change that one thing so that glorious day, it was already pretty good. I can't lie to you. It would just be utterly complete. And then also, a second that the INTZ team won the game, I'd just have all the... I'd do like what I did with that like apology that I did, where I just copied and pasted what Reggie said.
Yeah.
I'd do the same. I'd get all the same tweets that everyone from NA said about KaBuM beating Alliance. I'd just replace the names like, INTZ is just better than TSM. Accept it. Just put all that shit on there and just revel in it. It'd be amazing.
That would be pretty funny, yeah. The head coach, our head coach, is actually a TSM fan, but
of course.
I'm not too much of a fan of them.
Of course.
Yeah, he's American, so obviously he's a TSM fan. But yeah. But going back to the regionals, I would have loved to see another representative for Brazil going into Worlds last year. I think they could have done a better job than KaBuM. Not to dismerit KaBuM. Obviously, they were underdogs and they had a really good showing in the Brazilian regionals, and I guess they did pretty well in that last game versus Alliance. But some fans, I've seen some reactions of fans here in Brazil that say, "Oh, why go to Worlds? Because like whoever goes to Worlds is just gonna get stomped again, and our image and the outside image of Brazil is gonna keep being bad." But that's how weaker regions catch up, and the thing I think is really missing here in Brazil overall is like the lack of international tournaments like IPL. Like if IPL was still like a thing and more IEMs were happening where Brazilian teams could go, I think they could catch up to NA and EU pretty fast. Because like after a week of boot camp, I think we were performing much better. So if those tournaments,
it does sound like that you guys are not terribly far behind. Just from, I mean, I think that if you put you guys or Payne into the NALCS right now, you'd probably end up maybe around 6th to 8th place.
Yeah,
that's not so bad.
I'd say that's a fair assessment. Maybe higher if they get used to the region and start getting up to their peak level. But yeah, I'd say that's a fair assessment.
How's the Brazilian server for practice? Because I just have no clue what the quality of solo queue on that server is.
This is like the other problem. Right now, since I've been on vacation, I've been playing some Brazilian solo queue, and I come from Europe West. I think Brazilian solo queue is the level of play is pretty bad. I'll be honest. Like outside of the pro players, the other players in Master Challenger are like. It's like pretty bad. I sit next to my mid laner, and I know he complains every time like they get 3 pro players on one side, and he's the only pro player on his team, because he knows it's gonna be like almost impossible to win. I mean, like I've been playing for like what 3 days. I spammed solo queue. I'm close to Diamond 2 already, and since the server is a low population server, once you get to Diamond 1, Diamond 2, you start bumping into Master tier, Challenger tier players, which won't happen in EU because the player base is so much larger, right? In EU, you only start getting Master tier players once you're actually in Diamond 1. So I'd say solo queue is not very good for players to practice. The other problem is I don't think some players take it solo queue very seriously. Again, kind of like NA, where people complain they don't take it seriously. It's not like EU where everyone flames and tryhards. So I think that's another issue. And I mean, if you look back to one of the boot camps, Keed, before going into these regional finals last year, I think it was last year, they did a boot camp in Portugal. So they boot camped in Portugal to play on Europe West. And Loop, their support player, told the press that they were getting hammered by Diamond 2, Diamond 1 bot lanes. Like they were having legit trouble at the time. At the time, this was 2013. I think they've or 14. I think they've evolved. We've evolved quite a bit since then. But yeah, like when you say something like Diamond 2 bot lanes in Europe West were giving us trouble, it's pretty worrying. So I think like if solo queue was better around here, it would also help the player. It will also help the scene a lot to grow, because you specifically can't really get players from solo queue into competitive. What happens here in competitive is a player leaves a team, player goes to another team, or if a role is lacking, you'll just role swap a player, because it's probably more.
Or get
Koreans.
That's the favorite method from around the world to fix your team.
Yeah, that also tends to be the option. But yeah, like they also talk about how Winged and Ole as players, when they were here in Brazil, especially that time, not so much with Emperor and Daydream, but the other Korean players, they said that they in solo queue. I remember Revolt telling me that Wing taught him a lot just by playing solo queue versus him. That he was like super good, and yeah, the region evolved a lot with the Korean players being here. So yeah, I definitely think something's missing for Brazil to catch up. I think international tournaments would be the answer, since Brazil is region locked too far from NA to play NA solo queue or to play Europe West solo queue.
Yeah.
We get 200 ping to either, I believe, because it's all the teams are in São Paulo, which is like southeast of Brazil, so it's very far from NA and EU.
And you have to realize, for people who don't know, Brazil is a massive country. Like
Yeah.
like the entire country of France is like smaller than something like the third or fourth biggest province in Brazil itself as a country. Geographically, it's huge. So okay,
it's huge.
I mean, the thing is, it was worrying where you said there that they were having trouble from Diamond 2 bot lanes. I mean, initially I was like, wow, the SK Gaming bot lane's beating. And then you go, oh wait, on Brazil server, reset Brazil server. Okay. So here's the thing. When Monte said that thing about how they were literally opening up the assholes of NA teams and just ramming themselves in there furiously,
Oh my
I think,
God.
like he said, those are his exact words.
By the way, just so everybody on this show knows, this is exactly what happens when Thorin says anything. So just please go back and read my tweet and then read how Thorin chooses to paint it, and then quickly disregard anything Thorin ever says again. Thank you.
So yeah, end quote. And then when he said that though about how they were doing well in scrims or whatever, what does that actually mean, Shakarez?
We were taking some games. The last few days we were consistently taking games from both Challenger and LCS teams. Dominate talked well about us. We played a BO2 with them and we took a game off them. So I think they were pretty surprised. I don't know if they underestimated us or whatever, but we had a really good showing in game 1, and then we actually threw game 2, so we could have 2-0 them, I think. And Challenger teams, we had a pretty good scrim record with Challenger teams, except for Coast. Shrimp just destroyed us. That kid, I think I really want to see that kid in NALCS, because I think he, apart from Dominate and Rush, I think he'd be an upgrade for any NALCS team. He's really good.
Such as TSM?
Yeah. Actually, TSM would be really strong with a jungler like Shrimp.
Like 20 minutes in, we've got him already, Monty. You're one of us now, mate. You're dead anyway, so just keep going at this point. You've got nothing left to lose at this point in time, you know. It's like in the Second World War, if you join the Axis powers and you just declare for Germany, like you may as well just go to the end of that point, you know. Don't even bother surrendering, it's over for you. So okay, here's the thing. Now that your team can't go to Worlds, give us the analysis of what Pain's chances are. Assuming they can win. Like you said they would do well at the wildcard tournament, right?
Yeah. I'll be like brutally honest. I think they'll stomp in IWC, because how IWC is set up right now is Brazil has to play against the Latin American representative and the Russian representative, and then on the other side, it's Oceania, Japan, Turkey, and Southeast Asia. So arguably, you could say that the other bracket is much more stacked, where I think Southeast Asia and Turkey are going to be fighting for that spot. I don't think, even though Chiefs had like an immaculate season on OPL, I don't think they can contest against those two teams, against Dark Passage and against it's Bangkok Titans again, isn't it?
Yes.
I think it is. Yeah. Or is it? Yeah, I think it is Bangkok Titans. But yeah, either way, like those two teams are going to be fighting pretty fiercely for the IWC spot on that side of the bracket. Whereas
the representative for GPL has not been decided yet.
Okay.
There's a playoff coming up for it.
Okay, their system is super weird. I saw Bangkok Titans got first, but now they play like 4 teams play against each other or something like that. So
no system will ever be worse than what China's doing right now. Like my brain actually it's like blood starts to run out of my nose when I try to figure out what their system is as to how you qualify. It's like you play this game, don't worry, if you lose that, you're not out. You go into a different sub-qualification match, at which point if you lose, you go into a lower bracket, which brings you back around, looping through time, and you play yourself in Season 3, and if you can win that one, that seeds you into a tournament that begins this year. Like, what are you talking about? It doesn't make any sense. So anyway, I went off on something there. We'll go on that later. So, about Pain in the International Wildcard Tournament.
So I think out of the 3 teams, KLG is definitely the weakest. Should lose. They basically how it works is they'll play a group stage where they play each other twice, I think, and then the top 2 teams go to Chile to play a BO5 final. I think KLG will be knocked out first, and then it's going to be between Hard Random and Pain. But I think Pain is much better than Hard Random. Hard Random has a really aggressive and good mid laner, but apart from that, none of their players really stand out for me. They don't seem to be very versatile in terms of compositions, and they play a style of play that Pain knows how to counter, I think. So they play a lot of hard engage, and Pain knows how to play counter engage pretty well, and knows how to play poke. So if they can avoid the hard engage, or if they just play counter engage, they can just win all games, I think. So it should be pretty easy for Pain.
In the Brazilian region right now, the thing is, at the moment, for anyone who hasn't been keeping up, they don't have any Koreans in the top teams anymore. That whole experiment changed. Like eventually their visas ran out or whatever, and they had to go back. Who are the star players in Brazil right now, in your opinion?
So Kami from Pain is definitely like
mid-laner,
the star. Yeah, he's considered by the fans like the best mid laner here in Brazil. I would say it's arguable.
Best mid laner in that final. I tell you that much. So
obviously, I'm biased, but I think Talkers from our team is at his level. I think those 2 right now are the 2 best mid laners, and I think those are 2 mid laners that would be able to go outside and play for another team in NA or EU and do pretty well. Outside of that, who does Pain have? Pain, for me,
the
I don't think he's the best AD carry in the region. He's solid. He's consistent, but I wouldn't say he's the best AD carry in the region. I think the 2 players from Pain that really stand out are both solo laners, so Kami and Mylon. Mylon is pretty good, especially when you get him on carries. If you can get him on Gnar and Rumble, obviously the priority doesn't have to be that. He can play tanks as well, but if he gets an advantage, he can play around it pretty well. But if I had to go for the S tier Brazilian players, I'd say for top lane they would be Yang and Mylon. So Yang from INTZ and Mylon from Pain. Jungle Revolta, even though he didn't have a great season, I think his skill ceiling is phenomenal.
What team is he on?
He's on Keed. He left INTZ last split after winning with INTZ. He left for Keed. But yeah, he's a fantastic player. He's very knowledgeable. I worked with him for a short while because before joining INTZ, I worked on Keed for 3 weeks. He's a fantastic player. He's super knowledgeable. He's always watching VODs, and he's really gifted mechanically. I think he's still the best jungler in Brazil. Jockster, even though he didn't show up on those finals, I still think he's pretty strong. He just needs to fix that mentality problem that he might have. Surti doesn't really stand out for me. He performs solidly, but he's not like a superstar. And then mid, Kami and Talkers. Takeshi is probably third. And then AD carry. I'd say AD carry is the only stacked position here in Brazil.
Isn't that Essa guy pretty good?
Yeah, Essa is pretty good. He might be role swapping to top lane because, again, you don't have enough good top laners. Keed's top laner just retired. So Keed might just move Essa to top and try to get another AD carry. Or they might try to get Yang, our top laner. There have been rumors about that. But Ezza's pretty good. BRTT, I'd say, is the strongest AD carry in lane. He knows how to play lane very well. I wouldn't say he's a very good teamfight AD carry, but he's very good at laning. But outside of those two, Mikau, obviously from our team, is pretty good. And then even in the lower teams, Matsukaze had a really good last split. Not so much this split. He finished last place, but he's pretty good. Skyer from CNB, he actually just left the team. Oh, this is an interesting story. Skyer left his team on CNB because he was splitting practices with the other AD carry, and he felt like it wasn't fair for the team and for himself that he wasn't playing all the scrims. So he left the team.
Was he good enough? Should he have been playing all the scrims?
Yeah, he's better than the other AD carry, but I don't know if his idea that he needs to play all the scrims is correct. I mean, I don't know if he looks at Korea or China, but that's very common there, and the players don't get worse because of it. So I don't know if it was a correct decision, but maybe he can find a better team. But yeah, I'd say AD carry wise, you also have Sassi from INTZ Red. I think he's probably like the new. He's the up and coming star. I think he's probably top 2 right now in Brazil, but people don't really see it because like INTZ Red are pretty inconsistent. But he's always the guy who's performing there. So I'd say AD carry is the most stacked up position, and then for support, I'd say the best support is Loop, but Dude has definitely shown up. There was a point in like the last few weeks. The Pain played of the regular split, that Dude was looking like their best player, and I still think he's probably one of their best players right now. He's playing phenomenally. Apart from like some engages he tries to do on Braum, he's playing super well. I actually was confused when Pain hired him last split because like they hired a player. They had to change language comms. Well, they communicate in Portuguese, but then they had to translate to him some stuff, and he wasn't really a standout player. So I was like, what is the worth in bringing like a player that isn't really that good? But he really proved me wrong this split. He's playing really well.
Okay,
so I'd say.
For any fans who don't know, Dude is a French player. He originally played on AAA against All Authority in the first LCS split, and actually him having some sort of family issues was one of the reasons that team basically got like kicked out, relegated, had all these problems. Then he was in Gamers 2 towards the end, and as we all know, Gamers 2 either is like the graveyard for the end of your career, or it's where you just like, it's like the ultimate training weights that turns you into like Kasing or something, and you just go God mode. It's one of the two. It can only be one of the two.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the supports that went through Gamers 2, and you have 2 supports right now that could be going for Worlds, which are Rydal. Rydal is on Dark Passage, who just won the Turkish regionals, so he's going to IWCI, and you have Dude. So 2 former
Rydal used to be on Giants, right?
Rydal, I think Rydal played on the Rydal played on Giants. Yeah, exactly. He got replaced for Godfred. Okay. I believe. Yeah, I believe that's
so okay, I've got a couple of hypothetical scenarios here that I want to run by you. And maybe you can tell me something to do with the scene that means that this wouldn't make sense. Because to me, an obvious fix right now for Brazilian teams, like you're saying, the problems with the solo queue practice, the problems even in practicing like against other teams. Like once you look at CB LOL, like it's like there's probably like 2 or 3 teams that are decent. Then the rest are like people's sister teams. They're just not as good. And you can see by the records, people are beating them, you know. an obvious fix to me would be, right, whoever has the most money, just try and get one of your teams and put it into NALCS. Try and go through the challenger scene, qualify, get a house there, move over there, play in NALCS, get better that way. Is this not even on the table? Is this not possible?
I'm not sure about the rules. So if like a full Brazilian team decides to go
they could only have two Brazilians on their roster.
Yeah, that's the big problem because we saw in CS:GO. I don't follow the scene too much, but I know that the old
Payne's Counter-Strike team was there.
No, it's Keed Stars.
Keed.
They're now Luminosity, but yeah, they basically went to NA for a while.
Yeah, exactly. They went to NA for a while, and they actually performed pretty well in NA. And now they're playing for Luminosity, but I wish something like that could happen for Brazil. I think it would help the region. Obviously, there's the disadvantage that people talk about, which is fan base, which is you kind of get you're not so attached to your fans because you're playing in another region. But I think it would be worth it. I mean, when CLG went to Korea initially, like when the CLG EU and NA teams went to Korea, the EU team did super well. They got to the finals, I believe, right?
Yeah, they lost to Frost.
Yeah, that was it.
Which
so
coincidentally was also the last time that a Western team beat a Korean team in a best-of-5, which is when they beat NaJin's Sword at the time in a best-of-5.
Well,
that was in the middle of 2012, so here more than 3 years later, and no one has beaten a Korean team in a best-of-5.
Well, listen, Monty, we all know that TSM would have ultra-stomped GE Tigers in the best-of-5 final, but, they didn't get there. Oh, that's a shame. What a shame. Oh, well. Better luck next time. What, was that your crowning moment, your whole career? Oh, well. So unlucky. You know what they say, lucky in love, unlucky in whatever, cards or something, I don't know. Maybe TSM are really lucky in cards, I don't know. So, here's the thing. Obviously, that scenario now makes sense. It's true, there's the 3 out of 5 rule. You'd have to have some NA players. So that actually ties into my second option. Now, I wasn't thinking of it from this angle, but I was going to go the other way. Okay, let's say Shakarez. Let's imagine a hypothetical world. Obviously, nothing like this world that we live in. In my hypothetical world, there's an NALCS. Like League of Legends still developed. History, pretty much happened the same up until now. And in this hypothetical NALCS, there's the exact same teams, but in my, parallel universe where something went crazy, a bunch of the mid laners are dog shit and are actually just not really good players at all, right? Can't even body on stuff like Victor, which is like the most OP shit ever. They can't even do that. Okay, so hypothetically, remember, in the hypothetical world, there are all these dog shit NA mid laners. So if I'm an NA team, people are picking up Koreans, people are picking up random challenger players. I look over to Brazil and I go, hey, you know what? Why don't I just buy this Kami guy? Why don't I just bring him over to my team, put him in the lineup? I mean, first of all, even if he spoke no English, we're already bringing over Koreans anyway and trying to figure them into teams and Chinese players. But if he speaks any English, that's a bonus, And skill-wise, he looks better than some of these NALCS mids. So why couldn't that happen? Why do you think that never happens?
Also, the teams would immediately tap into the massive Brazilian fan base, which is just a good marketing move, honestly.
Yeah, it would be a fan. If it was Kami, it would be huge in terms of marketing that he would join an NALCS team for the team who would get him. I think both Kami and Talkers would do phenomenally in NALCS into the right team. They're both really good players. I don't know why it hasn't happened. It might be stigma that all the outside world knows of Brazil is KaBuM beat Alliance. That's all they know. Maybe they're not looking closely. I don't know. It wouldn't be too hard to buy out a Brazilian player, and the result could be pretty good. Like Talker's Kami for mid lane, or like a jungler like Revolta. I think a jungler like Revolta would be top 4 in NA easily. He's really that good, and especially when he's in the right environment with a strong team, he can perform. So
is the language barrier a primary issue there? Do most of these teams we were talking about comms a little bit. Do most of these teams do comms in Portuguese or in English, or how did they do it with the Korean players?
I believe Keed last split when they had Daydream and Emperor, they did English. But I don't think English would be a problem. I mean, we do pick ban in English because our coach is American. So they do all the pick ban in English, and I'd say 4 out of our 5 players have decent enough English, and the player that speaks the least English is still better than Piglet, for example. His English is still better than Piglet's English, so it wouldn't be a problem in that regard. I'd say Talkers. I'm not sure about Kami, but I assume he speaks good English. But Talker speaks enough English. Like his English is average or above average. He would do fine in terms of comms. Wouldn't be a problem. So I don't know. Maybe teams aren't looking, because I think that some of these players, if they were brought to NAEU, they could perform. It's a small bunch of players. Some of the ones I mentioned, maybe some more, but I think they would perform. So I think it might just be the idea that the outside world has of Brazil. Maybe like this year, maybe let's say Pain manages to get like third in their group. They don't make it through, but they make like third. Maybe people start looking at Brazil more, and maybe you'll start seeing Brazilian players outside. But yeah, results. I do think results speak a lot, and they might be it.
I'm curious too. So, what currently is the? Because I just know nothing, and I mean, you're in Brazil in a team house right now. What exactly is the kind of the scene like there? How developed is it? How's the sponsorship stuff going? What's it like for the players? Are they making a decent income?
Yeah. So players are salaried by Riot, just like in an ANEU. Staff isn't yet, but starting in January, I think that is supposed to change. So, I mean, that's looking good for Brazil. I think they're catching up to an ANEU pretty well. From my experience, I would say Brazilian orgs, especially the top orgs, don't have as much money as the NA ones, but they would be on par with the European ones, actually, which is surprising. But yeah, there's been quite some incentive to get outside coaches and analysts from other regions, and I think one of the biggest points is starting January with the next TB law. When Riot starts paying for staff, Brazil will actually have enough of an argument, monetarily speaking, to bring people from outside and try to develop the region. And I think that's a big point. I think players get paid pretty well. Obviously, it depends on the team, but on the top 3 teams, I'd say they get pretty decent pay. Probably Keed and Payne probably get more because they have more history. So they've been in the market for longer, so they can get those bigger sponsorships. But I can't talk about what's been happening over here, but some pretty cool stuff has been happening with INTZ. And going into next year, I know that they'll get nice sponsors for the players to get some extra income as well.
You know what's beautiful? Here's a great example of like cognitive dissonance in people, Shakarez. So a lot of people listening right now will be like, who cares about Brazil? Like, they'll never be good, they're just a fluke region. So simultaneously, Shakarez, they hold in their mind the logic of this, okay? Well, of course, Brazil could never catch up to NA and EU. How could they? They're worse players. Nothing's changing about the region, Maybe they could get foreign players. That's probably the only way. Then at the same time, in their mind, they just pick whichever region they like, NA or EU, and they just go, well, of course, we're going to be close to the Koreans. So just give us time. And, once we got better analysts and region, eventually we'll be close to Korea. It's like, isn't that the same principle at work there? No, because we're from where I'm from, and then they're from Brazil. So you can see how it could never work for them. So just show us the way the mind works, Do you think they ever will really be as good? Like, if everything, like you're saying here, the infrastructure stuff's building up. Okay, so I mean, first of all, by the way, Brazil, before anyone else was getting like all these Koreans in like properly, legit different teams trying to get them in, etc.
Yeah.
And now there's the coaching staff there. I mean, you're over there as an analyst, etc. So they're building up this aspect. Obviously, there'll always be the server issue, and there'll always be some issues within the region itself. Let's say, if we compare it to something like Taiwan, I realize it's unfair to do that because Taiwan actually has a pretty sick infrastructure in comparison. But in terms of in Taiwan, realistically, no one thinks the whole Taiwanese region has to be at the level of NA and EU. But we know that the top two or three teams there potentially can be. If not, hey, like the best team in Taiwan could be better than like the second best team in NA. It's just watch the games, mate. It's not implausible. Okay, so could Brazil be at that level in like 6 months and a year?
Maybe in 1 year. It's hard to say. I just wish there were more international tournaments. I think that would definitely speed up the process. Because whenever there's an international tournament, the team flies there like a week early. They start scrimming the teams in the tournament or the teams in the region. I think that would accelerate the process a lot. Like, obviously, like we only had 1 week of boot camp, but I think if we had done 2 weeks of boot camp, it would have been completely different. And any team that is able to go to NA or EU for like, especially I think EU has better scrim. I'm missing the word here. Scrim
environment.
Practice, a scrim environment. Yeah.
That's because there's all the EU teams there. So yeah. The problem in NA is the NA team. The servers is fine, you know. It's absolutely fine. Great team houses. Managers are doing a bang up job. Lots of great fan base. You know, the one thing they're lacking is you need people to sit in the booths in there. Oh, no, not booths, of course. Just to sit at an open desk where anyone, even 2 feet away, could tell you stuff right in your ears and play the game. So yeah.
But yeah, if Brazilian teams were able to do these boot camps or go to these tournaments where they can pre-prep for the tournament for like 1 week in the region, I think it would speed up the process super fast. But yeah, hopefully with IEMs, the Brazilian teams can get through qualifiers or get invited and start showing up more on those. But yeah, I'd say in a year we could see Brazil close to NA. I won't say at the level. Maybe that's too optimistic, but I think they can get there.
Because that's the problem. Sure. At the moment, Brazil's actual international reputation in League of Legends is much like the thing that Brazil is most famous for, which is Mordekaiser. So what happens when someone plays Mordekaiser, right? I'll just let Monte in on this, okay? So someone can play it once, and if you don't know what you're going to do, if you've never played against it, you'll be like, what is this shit? Like, what even is this? Like, they could just cheese you, but then you will never lose to it again, okay? So that's kind of how people internationally think of Brazil, you know? They could beat us once if we don't know who they are. We think they're like savages, primitives who tattoo League of Legends characters onto their body, maybe in some sort of totemistic fashion, believing it will give them power, you know. But once we've lost them once, we will never lose them again. So that's how people think of it. Shakarez, I've got another Brazil-related question I have to ask you about. So do you remember when Emperor signed for... What's the name of the team? TDK. When he signed for this team, most people's logic was, well, if he couldn't win in Brazil, he must be shit now. Like, if his team didn't even win the Brazilian region, was he shit? Like, what? Can you actually tell me anything about that? Why could a player who at one point was world-class AD carry, why was he not able to just, like, bully the whole region when he played there, do you think? Like,
to be fair, I think Emperor was probably, like, one of the least impactful Koreans we had here. Daydream at the time was better. I don't know if he was slumping. I don't know if you watched the interview he gave when he was on TDK, but he was pretty mean about Brazil. He talked a lot of shit. Like people were. I don't remember what he said, but he didn't have many nice things to say. So I don't know if the environment on the team was good. Maybe the communication issues weren't solved, and that was a problem. I'm not sure what really happened, but in Brazil's defense, Emperor was not very good here in Brazil compared to like Ole and Winged and Suno, who actually got here and performed super well and helped Brazil to increase their level. Emperor was never like a standout player. I'd actually say that Daydream actually was the better of the two Koreans when they were playing on Keyed.
Since all the Koreans who went over there, even if they played well, their teams never won the Brazilian region. Is that the reason why there's no Koreans now? Do you think, has everyone just done with the idea of bringing Koreans in?
Perhaps. It's an investment, and then when you invest something like that, on something like that, and you think it's going to work, like you're trying to build a kind of super team, like you bring in two Koreans, you try to increase the level of your team, and they still don't win, and then the visa ends, and then they have to get shipped back. Yeah, I think like after, so there's been 3 iterations of Brazilian rosters. There's also been like is it Crown? Samsung's mid laner.
Yes.
He used to be Shadow here in Brazil. He played. I think he only played in Brazilian Challenger. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, after a while,
I can only imagine what Brazilian Challenger is like. I must be like, fucking, if we just hop in a ranked 5 game now, I reckon we can win Brazilian Challenger Shakarez. I reckon we can do it.
Yeah, Brazilian challenger level isn't pretty good. But to be fair,
that's where that guy's career was going. He went to fucking Brazil. He was playing. Wow, what team do you play for in CB Law? Oh, I'm not even in CB. I'm hoping to be in CB Law maybe next year. Things go well. Like,
to be fair,
holy
yeah,
moly.
backend has been doing well in Samsung.
I want to see a documentary about that guy's career when he hit rock bottom of Brazilian challenger, and now he's in Samsung. And he's like winning games against LCK level teams.
I think he played for Team 58ers or something with Reset.
Okay.
And then
Reset, the legend.
Yeah.
Another Korean.
Reset was here too. And then he moved to...
By the way, Reset and Suno are all on the same team in China right now on Showtime.
Oh, they're in Showtime, yeah.
They formed like a really shitty Voltron that was half decent in like early 2013, and they're trying to make it money together. Do you
know that a really shitty Voltron is one of my favorite phrases ever, Thorin?
Okay. You can keep that.
But yeah, I think that after a while, when investments like that don't work, they stop importing Koreans, and maybe it just wasn't working for them. Like it wasn't worth the hassle of the communication issues and all that, and all the problems that with visas and all that stuff. I think the teams may have got fed up with it and just started going for Brazilian players only. I don't know. Maybe Brazil will import NA and EU players next.
So why not? That's the thing. Listen, if they've got the money to fly someone from Korea, put him up, give him somewhere to live. I mean, listen, admittedly, I know some of these Korean players, unfortunately, will probably go for fairly low amounts if they think it's a chance to play in a proper league and, make their career and maybe, like with people like Crown, maybe show people back home, like I'm not half bad, maybe I can get back there. I know some of them might go for less money, but why do you think there's never been like a high-profile EU or NA? Like, I'll give you an example, okay? So when Alex Ich kept trying to go through Europe and then he had nowhere to go, why was there no Brazilian team like, listen, mate, it's not Europe or NA, but we'll give you a sick house to live in, come live here, we'll pay you top money. Why has there never been like the big signing,
I'm not sure. Maybe there's not just enough money to attract a player. I would say there's enough money to attract, especially on Keed and Pain, like the two orgs that have been here and historically have been here for longest and then get the big sponsorships. But I don't know. Maybe it was like the thing of just getting the Koreans because the Koreans were the best, But Overpow and Aranea were signed in as subs for Pain and INTZ respectively, but they never made it here. Overpow, I know Pain didn't want him after because they got Mylon, so they didn't really need Overpow. Aranea, I think it was more of a thing to come as in a coaching staff. I'm not entirely sure, but I guess those could count as attempts. But out of that, I guess I just looked at Korea because Korea was the best region. So let's import some tier 2 Koreans and try it out. But yeah, I think there would be enough money to import like an NA or an EU player. Maybe there's just not been enough interest. Maybe they just the teams just looked at the Korean players and saw the experience didn't go well and don't want to try it again, don't want to risk it. But Dude clearly worked, so I don't know. It's hard to say why didn't it work.
Okay. Should we just end the Brazilian section there?
I think I said everything about Brazil.
You said too much of anything, mate. Okay, so
yeah.
Let's go over to... We'll start in Europe, first of all. So we're into the semi-finals, which means we need to do some comment on the quarterfinals first, Monty. Now, first of all, in the first match was actually the one where H2K played Giants. Now, because we got that like bullshit inside info, I told you I hate inside info. I'll give you a principle that I use in eSports. Okay, so I realize this is going to be extra sweet right now, Monty, because I'm going to now perfectly tie it in so you know what I'm referring to here. When someone who's an insider in the industry lets me know some information, like maybe what's going on in scrims or something, there's internal struggles going on. A lot of people are like, "Oh, this is like the stock market, and I've just got some insider tip. But buy, sell." What I do is I ignore that completely. I'm being serious here, and I just look at the in-game server stuff and go, it'll probably be quite similar to that. So I'm just going to stick with what happened there. So in your world, you were like, who can know? Maybe HTK's having problems. Maybe Giants could go crazy. And I was like, no chance of that happening ever. HTK will stomp. And it was a ridiculous stomp, Monty. This is ludicrous. All I need to say is KaSing ended the series with a 47 KDA. So, like, what was this series, Monty? Where was this hype of Giants being this underdog threat? They weren't, were they?
No, they were terrible. I mean, what do we say to that, really?
I mean, their drafts were kind of weird. Like, Giants seems to go for... They seem to go for a mix between comfort picks and split push, and they don't have a specific comp. Like, their comp doesn't do one thing.
Anything?
Yeah, it's like...
Anything?
Like their first...
Anything?
I think it was the first game. Yeah, the first game. They go for the Corki... They go Corki Janna bot lane, Victor
mid. The first
mid.
game was that draft. I looked at that draft, and I just... You know what? I wanted to die. I did.
I don't know what happened there. The game was over in draft, the first one.
Well, the genius of it as well is forget Giants' side. Just look at the champions that they gave to H2K. That's that's almost like they think they're SK Telecom. They're like, have all your best champions, then we will beat you in game one and crush your spit. Oh shit, you are wrecking us so hard. Please, master. Like, that's almost like the signature champion for every player there. That's ridiculous, man.
The best. Okay, let's just talk about this draft because maybe people don't understand why it's terrible. All right, I'm Giants. What are my champions? Trundle, Nidalee, Victor, Corki, Janna. Okay, I have a decent poke comp, right? And I can 4-1 split with this composition. I can just play the Trundle. But the problem is that you literally can't do anything if you even fall slightly behind. Because sometimes, you know, I shit on people's compositions and I say, you know, this composition lacks primary engage. What do we mean by that? Something ultra reliable engage. Is it an Alistair? Is it something like a Maokai? Targeted shit, targeted long-range crowd control that can get you into a fight. Now, what do we mean by secondary engage? Champions like Kennen, who you have to perhaps use a summoner spell like Flash to get that reliable engage, right? Yep. The magic of Giants composition is that not only do they lack primary engage, which is okay, you can win games like that, there are different strategies, you could run poke comps like that, but they also lack secondary engage. There is no engage. None. And why is that important? Okay, what happens if Giants falls behind? What their composition is designed to do is to get Trundle into a winning position against Shen, split with the Trundle, and then have the other 4 members siege turrets. But the problem is if you start to lose dragons early, or you start to fall behind in any conceivable manner, which is kind of easy when they have a Shen and he's going to be globaling all over the map and all this other shit, and you're dealing with a composition like H2K's, which is designed to create picks. Lee Sin, Thresh, and Ahri. It's a pick composition. Okay? And they have a lot of single target bursts from Tristana. So they're going to kill you really fast from outside the fog of war, pick somebody off and take the dragon. Well, you can never take a dragon at that point ever again. Unless you get one for free. They don't even contest it. Because they're going to be sitting at dragon, and you're going to be sitting there doing fuck all nothing to them, and you have no way to start a fight.
Yep. I mean, to be fair to Giants, in the third game, they actually did a decent job of getting the I think it was third game, right? Third game they did a decent job of getting the Trundle into a position where he could split.
Okay, but that wasn't the primary problem. The problem is this composition functions at no level. If we talk about the third game, they have Twisted Fate for engage, they have Sivir and Evelyn flanks. It's fine. I I don't think it's a good comp, but it's at least somewhat functional.
It works.
The
third game is weird because they show engage with the Sivir Evelyn, then Braum is more counter engaged, but it works, and then Trundle is mainly split push for 4-1 and 1-3-1. So I guess TF can kind of split, or he can.
Well, but Sivir's shit in a 1-3-1, right? She has a low auto attack range. I think. I mean, if you're gonna run this, I'd rather.
She's not the best.
I'd rather see Corki, but it's whatever. It's fine. She works
in 1-3-1.
It's sort of bad. it's okay. It's not great. It's not a great draft. It's decent.
See, Monty doesn't realize that Giants, okay, are like the Brazilian football team, okay? They don't play like a tactical style, Monty. They don't come in with a set plan. What they try and do, okay, is use like brilliant, intuitive, the Samba style, you know, they're getting the passion going. They're trying to make plays, okay? So their plan, Monty, was Godfrey on Jana was going to flash into the center. He was going to actually blow everyone back onto his team,
Jesus.
At which point the gravity field would go down exactly on them, and then Trundle would slow them, and then that's it. You just win the fight at that point. There's nothing you can do versus that. If that works perfectly, it's over.
Flawless.
And then you're just thinking, oh God, what could we possibly have done, aside from have like all these sick champions with escapes and everything, and definitely not ever let that happen. So, yeah, pretty good, right? Also,
it's not even like champions that could engage were banned out either.
Yeah, they weren't. Maokai was available.
Hello, Maokai? Do we really need to run fucking Trundle? He's not even good. He's not even good.
I mean, Trundle was like his replacement for Jax, since Jax was banned, I guess.
You shouldn't be playing either of these champions.
Yeah, but
that's all he plays,
true.
Mate. So, okay, what do you think about in Game 2 where they try a bold Vayne pick? Is there anyone I think if you're not like a top 3 AD carry in the world right now, and or not a top 3 AD carry trying to style on someone, you shouldn't even be allowed to pick Vayne right now. There's some ridiculous Vayne picks going on in the world. It was one thing when China used to do it with like random ADs, but why are people in the West doing it when they're not even good AD carries? I don't get it.
Yeah, like the thing here, like I think their second draft was actually the best one. Like if you just look at the draft and you don't look
I agree.
If you don't look at their team style, if you don't look at anything, you just look at the draft. I
agree,
think it's their best draft.
Because Gragas and Vayne have a really good synergy. That's a great form of primary engage. You throw the barrel in, and then Vayne has a 1v1 with somebody, and your front line is in front of the person to toss in. And you have Victor burst too. So you throw somebody back there, and Victor can one-shot them. It's fine.
And Braum is pretty decent with Vayne. He can actually, if you play it well enough, you can actually survive the 2v2. Especially if you lane swap and then you come back at level 5, 6 with a Cutlass, you can pretty much do the 2v2 with Braum. He actually protects Vayne pretty well. But yeah, I'm not sure why they went for Vayne. I don't see Audrey being really a good Vayne player. I'd rather stick him to utility. So put him on Sivir. If Sivir is banned, put him I guess he can just poke on Corki or Ezreal. But he doesn't really stand out as like a mechanical god that can go on Vayne for me.
So Shakarez, at the end of the split, H2K looked like they were in like a mini slump and people were worried. Like of the top teams, they were the ones that seemed the most shaky, you know. Obviously, they were playing Giants. It's not like they were playing some other super good team. What do you actually think of, like, has this series kind of given you hope that they'll have a better chance in the semis? What do you think of them now?
It's kind of, it goes two ways, you know. On one side you think, oh, they 3-0'd, so they're looking really good. But then it's like, it wasn't really, they didn't 3-0 Origin, or they didn't 3-0 Unicorns. So at the same time you kind of think, well, like, they played against a team who's not really that strong. To be fair to Giants, they've had a phenomenal season, in my opinion. Like, a team that everyone thought they would be like dead last, making it to playoffs, is a win in itself. And I know that I've heard the Spanish community has been giving Lozark quite a hard time, but I think he did a pretty decent job.
I mean, it also helped that Forgiven got fucking banned for like the last 3 games. Let's be real-ish, Karas, you know. So it's not like, and they really believed, and because they did, God made Forgiven toxic as fuck. Like, oh, you know, come on. You gotta be reasonable here, God.
No, but I think they did a really decent job in the split.
They got some wins, sure.
The fact they got to playoffs is a win in itself. But I'm not sure what to expect of H2K, especially with the Betong Gyoke fighting for the position with Lulex. I don't know how exactly the environment is. If it's like a healthy environment where they split scrims and they see who's the better player and they try to play around the strengths of each jungler, or if it's like a situation where Lulex is totally out and Betong Gyoke is coming in. I don't know what the situation is there, but they're looking strong. I still think Origin will beat them, but I'd love to see H2K at Worlds, and I'm a really big Kasing fan, so I'd love to see Fnatic, Origin, and H2K. So hopefully that happens.
Shakarez,
But I still think OG wins.
Do you think KaBuM is a better player than Yellowstar? Now, when I say that, let me just set it up like this. When we say player, we have to... Like, listen, you can include shot calling to a degree as a strength, but it can't be like the binary thing. Like, it can't be like, because KaBuM isn't the main shot caller, he can't be as good. So include it as a strength, but don't make it like the only one. Okay, so if we're comparing like Yellowstar to KaBuM to whoever else as support, is KaBuM the best?
It's really hard to say. KaBuM plays 5 champions really well. Like, he plays Thresh, he plays Alistar, he plays Annie, he plays Braum, and I'm missing one. Thresh, Alistar, Braum, Annie. I'm missing one. I guess Leona?
This season, his most played champions are Thresh, Alistar, Janna, and Annie.
Oh, Janna, yeah. I forgot Janna. Yeah, all of his top champions are really good. I'd say mechanically there's not really a difference between Yellowstar and him. Now his roaming is pretty good, but it's really hard to say when like a team goes 18-0. You don't really look at the weaknesses as much. So if we could switch the players, and Yellowstar goes to H2K and KaBuM plays on Fnatic, would Fnatic do as well if you exclude this shot calling part?
Yeah.
I think it would be pretty much the same. I think KaBuM is that good. I mean, he's had some poor games. I remember he had like a really poor game on Annie, but he's very consistent. So I wouldn't say he's the best one. I'd still rate Yellowstar above him, but I'd say he's top 2, probably in contention with Miffy. Although Miffy hasn't been having as good games, so it's hard to rate Miffy right now.
What do you think, Monty? What is your opinion?
I really like KaBuM's playmaking ability. I just think he adds so much as a player and contributes so much to the macro play of a game and can really help H2K get forward. So I think that'd be where my preference lies.
Yeah. If I was looking at both players, also one thing I'd have to look for, if I was studying both teams specifically, I'd look at their warding patterns to see like who's the better warder, who's actually contributing to most of the early game plays with the warding, because I think they both do a fairly good job, but maybe KaBuM is better in that aspect. I'm not sure.
I think KaBuM plays the map better late, though, and we have to remember too that if we have to have criticisms of Origin, it's going to be on their team fighting and their macro game. It's not on their skirmishing or their early game. So since we know that Mithy is the primary shot caller on that team, one must conclude that perhaps Mithy is not the greatest shot caller in Europe.
There's also the issue that if you compare Mithy, KaBuM, and Yellowstar, well, let's look at the rosters each of these 3 players has, and there's a massive disparity. Mithy and Yellowstar have way better players on their teams. Pretty much every lane has a really good player in it. There's not that many really good individual players on H2K.
Yeah, H2K plays really well as a unit, but Odo Omne is solid. He's consistent. He hasn't really been he's not like a hard carry for the team. But yeah, I guess you could say most of the players on Origin or Fnatic are better individually. But it's hard to say because Soas plays like a different pool of champions. He plays more Lulu than any other top laner. But Odo Omne, I think Odo Omne is top 2 top laner. He is
really good.
Okay, so there's one player. They've got one player who's top 2 at his position. They've got KaBuM. There's 2 at the moment. 2 out of 5 we've got who are top 2. That's it. You can stop right there.
Yeah.
And also, let's remember, they have one of the worst junglers in LCS. It's real, right? I don't know anyone who thinks otherwise.
The comparison I usually do to Lulex is that he's like a worse version of TBQ.
Schwen from LGD, yeah.
In the sense that both LGD and H2K try to hide their jungle weaknesses.
Yeah.
In that regard, obviously, I think TBQ is better, but you can kind of see the comparison.
That's disturbing. That's just a disturbing thing to say, though, because old TBQ doesn't have the best rep.
He's a poor man's Schwen. That's the thing, Monty. That's who he is. Lulex. That's even worse. See, Shakarez thought he was being reasonable there. If that was on the box, a poor man's
sorry
Schwen.
If you're watching this right now, because I'm sure that didn't make you feel good.
It's unreal, isn't it?
But yeah, I actually, in the beginning of the season, I thought Lulex was playing pretty well, but he fell off pretty hard. To be fair on him, I don't know what's been on.
I'm going to get into the Origin H2K thing in a second, but first of all, it's what I'm going to now make a semi-regular feature on this show, and it's called Leally. Ryu did that? And it's going to be, every now and then it's going to appear, okay? So I had an episode before, Monty, where I updated you about an old Trash Talk segment. Then there was an episode where I told you about something that KaBuM tweeted, where he tweeted about how Ryu came over to him. He was playing solo queue. Ryu came over, put a pot noodle down onto the table, and KaBuM goes, "Is that for me?" And then Ryu goes, "No, make it for me." And then he's like, "What the fuck?" And so there's another update, Monty, because I keep following KaBuM's Twitter. There's one that's almost as good. This is the update, okay? It just says, okay, so here's what happened. I'll set the scene again. Ryu's sat at his desk, he's playing on the games. So Ryu walks over, just takes his Sprite off the desk, just steals it, and then tells KaBuM to accept his cue when it pops and just goes out the room. That's it. What's great about this segment, okay, is it makes Ryu sound like the biggest baller ever. Like when Shakarez was talking before about Emperor, I actually get worried because I think about these poor Koreans going to regions where, they're probably bullied, or they're the guys who are just really quiet and they don't know how to talk to anyone. Ryu's just pimping around the place, just everyone's his minion and is doing everything he says. KaBuM's the best player on Ryu's team, but Ryu doesn't seem to understand this. He's like, "You are support player, you make my Q go, and also make this pot noodle for me. Is that a Sprite? Thank you for the Sprite." That's just unreal, isn't it? That's baller. I'll keep everyone updated, okay?
To quote Prawley, Koreans don't care.
It's great, isn't it?
That's what he said in an interview.
So if there's any more updates there, Monty, I'll let everyone know on the show about the Leally. Ryu did that. That will be the name of the sequence. I'm already setting it up, by the way, there, so someone can make a compilation video in the future. I'm thinking ahead, branding, marketing. So, okay, now let's go into the series itself. So, Shakarez thinks Origin should still win. Now, Monty, on our stats show, you said H2K is going to win the series. So, can you explain why they will win?
Because I just think they're looking a lot better now towards the end of the season compared to what we were seeing from them before. And that gives me a lot of hope. I think they started out really strong this season, and they had a good macro game. And sure, they were helped out by Giants drafting in nonsensical ways, and Giants generally poor play over this best of 5. But the other side to that is that, honestly, they really did look like a much improved team. That's it. And so I think it'll be a close series. I don't definitely know or have a hard prediction that H2K is going to win this. I think it's like 55% H2K. But,
so Monty, you've always had this. You've always had this tendency, though, where you want to believe that the team who wins with the macro style and thinking it through, as long as things are even, they should win over the team that's just the mechanical skills and just loose play. So in your mind, H2K can figure it out. Every game they can get to the 30-minute point and they can make the correct decisions and they'll just win that way.
I hope so. I mean, Origin's thing is that they've got really solid players and really solid skirmishing, but they're often too aggressive, and they play late-game macro pretty poorly. We saw what happened in the last Fnatic Origin game, where Origin had a huge advantage and managed to just entirely screw that one up. There's no way they should have lost that game.
What do you think, Shakarez? What do you think on Monty's criticism?
It's true. They totally screwed that up. I remember watching that game. I was like, is this it? Is Fnatic gonna lose the game? But nope. But I think that Origin may surprise. Their early game is strong, and if they can shape up mid game, and since they have strong early, they could take games off of H2K, who doesn't always have the best early game.
That's true.
They usually win from macro and good mid game to late game play, so they could surprise if they gain enough of a lead and know how to use it, because in the past we've seen that sometimes they don't use it well, but if they use it well enough, I think they could take games and take the series.
So here's the thing.
it's the series that could go either way, in my opinion. It's the most balanced matchup right now in EU and NA, I think.
So yeah, Monte doesn't know this, but every time he characterizes Origin like that, like, you know, they're good early, but then they have really big macro problems. Like, what are they changing strategically? What's going on coaching wise? Whenever he says any of these things, he doesn't know this. But Origin, there's some people within that team, the organization, some certain players who get hella salty. And I'm not just talking about Amazing, because let's face it, I think Amazing wakes up and he just looks at his clock and it's like, oh, salty o'clock, time to go. Like, it's default that Amazing is salty, okay? In fact, he actually is the original TSM member who just got tilted by something like a year ago and has been carrying on. Like, but it was our show. Like, he watched episode, I don't know, 4 of Summoning Insight, and he's been tilted ever since for his whole career, you know. But I'm talking about other people around the organization. Like, they don't like this idea that Monty's just, you know, they're not good at it, because unfortunately this is all the stuff that in theory coaching stuff should be helping with and encouraging and figuring out. Shakarez, do you have a different sense of this? What do you think on this? Let's go back and forth.
I know they're going all in for playoffs. I mean, they brought their analyst from NA, so he's living with the team. So I think that might help quite a bit for the team to improve. Yeah, some of the players do get salty. That's true. I
mean, do you have a counter to Monty's criticism here, or his characterization of the issues they have beyond like laying phase, but when it gets to the mid and late game?
No, I think it's a fair assessment that sometimes they don't play macro and late game team fights very well, but it's definitely something that can be fixed. And if it's fixed, Origin will look like a really good team.
Well, if you figure out how to fix it, could you immediately like get on Skype to Team Liquid and tell them how to fix it, like right after the Origin match, and then maybe they can also win for the
wish.
Same shit, right? Same shit.
Team Liquid is one of those teams that they could be so much. They're first right now. They finished first, but they could be so much better.
They're like the same team, mate. They're both all these really good individual players, do really well first 20 minutes, and then goes to shit inexplicably.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, Monty, now that I've I haven't insulted, but let's say just speaking about players from certain teams getting some butt hurt, I'll now make you triggered, okay? Much like they've just been triggered by that section. Because I'll go like this, Monty. See, this matchup, H2K versus Origin, it's sort of like when Samsung Blue used to play Samsung White. And H2K would be Samsung Blue, Monty, just like Samsung Blue. And Origin is just like Samsung White. They're really sick early on. They're good, a little bit skirmishing there. But in a series, you know, maybe Blue could win over them. What do you think of this perfectly accurate analysis, Monty?
Stunning. How do you do it?
But wait, how is Samsung White in that matchup? If Dandy and Mata are Jankos and Vander?
Exactly. We'll never know, mate. See, that's what's beautiful about tweets, by the way. There's no space for an asterisk. It's not David Foster Wallace novel. You can't just have like annotations and fucking shit at the bottom where it's a story about why. Do you know the real reason? Can you guess the reason why I said that comment, Shakarez? That Jankos and Vander with their Dandy and Mata of their region. Can you figure out why I'm acting that?
I'm not sure. I think maybe it's vision play and how they play early.
Yeah,
they play
exactly.
Early well.
They're the two best players on their team historically. They're on a team where the way they interact together is one of the primary strengths of the team. Now, unsurprisingly, saying that like they are the Dandy and Mata does not mean that, like, for a start off, I wasn't suggesting that their names are Dandy and Mata. So since people haven't assumed that level of literal reading of it, I don't know why people would assume the rest. Like, oh, and did they also win worlds? Like, no, it's not how metaphors work, actually, mate.
No, they have pretty high percentage of the first blood on Rockhat is Jankos and Vander.
I just thought it was an interesting.
They always contribute.
Parallel. Anyway, but
but it's always fun of taking. That
I don't mind, mate. I don't mind. It's funny. Yeah, it's good.
People like making a meme out of that one. Always.
I think it's good. I think it's a good one. It's better than being like everyone in EULCS is someone from Samsung Galaxy now. What do you mean? Just sort of like a metaphor? No, they're literally just like them, mate. They're just fucking shit. They may as well go and play in Brazil as well in the Challenger League. Much like Amazing. So, enough about that. So, why is Origin going to win this series, Shakarez? You only kind of briefly touched on it.
I obviously have a bias because I like both teams. To be fair, I want to see both teams at Worlds. I hope we're.
Wait a minute. I'm gonna have to pull you up right there. What do you?
Oh boy.
I asked you for analysis on who's going to win the game.
Yeah, okay.
So what do you mean? Like, well, obviously I'm biased because I like this team. Well, it doesn't matter really. You know, like you can give them handshakes, you can give them a hug, you can have a picnic with them. Who's going to win the game and why?
I think Origin, because like when they're at their skill ceiling, like when they're playing at their top level, and if they're able to fix their problems going into mid game and late game, since their early game is already very good, and that's something that not many teams have. I think they have the upper hand, and just the fact that they're bringing their analyst over means that they're dedicated to try to win this and try to reach the finals. So I'm putting my bet on them. I just hope like Miffy doesn't tilt or something like that, because he's known, or the community perceives that he's known for tilting. So as long as those players, like, I think that if they win the first game, if they're able to open up the series with a win, it should go their way, in my opinion, because some of those players I perceive as very emotional players. So if it goes their way, they're super motivated and they can win.
So let me ask you this, Shakarez. Who of the two teams has the best drafting?
That's
a hard one. I'd have to look at the draft specifically.
I wouldn't be able to answer this question immediately either.
Yeah, I would have to look at the drafts. I would say it's pretty close between both teams. I've seen both teams doing really good drafts and sometimes just fucking up the draft out of nowhere. But I'd say it's really equally the draft. Like, I don't think you'll see a clear winner in Champion Select. I don't think that will happen. I think both teams know to play to their strengths. Also, there's the fact that both teams have, in some roles, different champion pools. So, since the champion pools don't go over each other, they can still get power picks for each player on each side.
Okay, let's look at that then. That's a really good point there. If the players aren't, for example, even fighting over the same champions, and if they aren't necessarily, like, it's not like these are teams that only have one champion each, you know, like some of the lesser teams. So in theory, people should be playing the champions they're good at as well. So it makes it a good, in theory, a good stylistic matchup. Both teams can be at their best. Does that change at all the flow of the series?
I mean, you can always target ban some of the champions they're known for. Like, you can ban.
You can never account for SOAS, though. You can't.
Yeah, like you can think, oh, SOAS is playing a lot of Lulu. Let's ban that out, and out of nowhere, his champion pool has 20 more champions that he's ready to play. So you never know. Like, obviously, Odoamne plays tanks pretty well. I think his Rumble's pretty decent. Whereas
he's a very meta player, though.
Yeah, he's a very meta player. Whereas SOAS goes more off meta, and so does Xpeke. Xpeke goes more off meta too.
I think we're gonna see the SOAS Gangplank.
You think so? I'd like to see that. I watched EU Challenger and Wonderware from Dignitas, who I don't think he's a standout player. He's not the main carry of that team, but like last game BO5 against Mouse eSports, he pulls off the Gangplank, and he did so much work with that champion. It's insane. Like, he was really ready to play that champion, and he knew exactly the combos, how to set up the barrels to go for the AoE crits, because those barrels, I think they ignore like 60% or 80% of your armor, so it's like insane. Like in a team fight, if you're able to use that correctly, you get like an AoE crit of 1,200, something like that. It's insane. So I'm definitely excited for new picks, and especially with the patches going forward so fast, which is something I don't really like. But with that happening, I think we could see some interesting new picks showing up. But yeah, the Gangplank would be definitely very interesting to see. I really like to see that champion.
So one of the things in this series, the problem I have with this series is that, like, H2K is the team at the moment that I like to watch the most in the West. Like, probably, like, listen, Fnatic's really good as well, but in a way, I think what I like about H2K is that I know some of their players aren't as good as some of the people they're playing and potentially beating. So I always think it's cool when a team can do that. Just win with strategy and, like, or one player playing the game in a team sense, really awesome, you know. That's always cool to watch. Problem is, I actually have a feeling Origin's going to win this series. Like, one thing I think of when I think of the two teams, okay, there's a lot of positives for both teams. Both teams have their strengths in different areas. But I think I will put this whole series on amazing, because if he does shit, first of all, just get ready for that fucking roasting session in that next Summoning Insight, mate. It's going to be amazing if he goes out in the semi. But this is why I'm saying it will be an amazing roast session, because this is where the series where he should be able to just go ham. Like, Lulex is not a guy who's going to be any direct threat to him in that sense. He's playing for the team and all that. So if you're amazing, literally, this is your series to show it, mate. You can win this whole series for your team. You can be the MVP. So it's all on you, buddy. Let's see how you do there. Let's see if you should have made LCS finals like you should have made Worlds final. Anyway, so enough about. So I just cut straight out of that there. People don't even realise that's an act. Like, I'm not actually that obnoxious, sort of. So
I actually think like you bring us a fair point. I think amazing Lulex is the biggest disparity from like a matchup. I think every other matchup is pretty equal.
They have the reasons as to why you could debate them, at least, you know.
Yeah. I guess also you could say like Niels is a cut, maybe a cut above Hjarnan, but Hjarnan has been playing pretty well.
I don't know. So I don't
know.
The key thing about Hjarnan is he gets a really good. You know when you see like a baby monkey swinging, or a mother monkey swinging in the jungle in Africa. Well, I don't know why you'd see that in Africa. On a documentary, okay. So you see the monkey swing along. You know, sometimes they're swinging really quickly from tree to tree. Then you see that there's a little baby monkey, like a little spider monkey, like hugging onto the mother. And you're like, oh my God, how does it hug on like that? If it let go, it would just fall off and die on the floor of the canopy, okay. Hjarnan has got the best grip out of any little baby spider monkey AD carry onto his mother, who is Kasing, who roams around and is just going around protecting him lovingly, and then that's what his job is, to keep a grip on, to keep a good little grip on there. Stay alive, son. And then that's his job, Hjarnan. That's it. See, normally people think I'm disparaging. I made him into a cute little figure. He's a cute little spider monkey.
Yeah, you still can you just not compare people to monkeys?
It's my thing, Monty. We agreed before. That's my thing. I compare people to monkeys. So luckily though, he is white. And as far as I know, I did my research in this morning, there's no history of Swedish people being compared to monkeys in a derogatory manner. In fact, I just did it in a loving manner. So I've made a positive affirmation there that he is like a little spider monkey. So, moving on. Also, don't have any idea what his brother looks like, so I can't even back that up. I've got no out on this one. So, let me think. Okay, so going over to the other matchup now. So I don't want to like trigger like PTSD in you or anything here, Shakarez, but there was this series that was supposed to be a clear win. Okay, this was going to be a triumph for EU. Like, EU's looked so shit aside from the top team basically that finally it was going to be good, Shakarez, because what was going to happen was Roccat would pretty cleanly just stomp out Unicorns of Love. Then finally, maybe, listen, we know they were never going to beat Fnatic, but they might have been able to give them a run. You know, maybe they could have one crazy game where they beat Fnatic and we'd be like, oh my God, this is so exciting. Instead, Unicorns of fucking Love did it again. They did another 3-2 series and they won.
Okay.
Get ready, Monty. Come on, Monty.
BO5 live.
Okay, unleash Monty. Unleash him. Go.
All right. So here's what's actually interesting is that they improved pretty damn a lot with Horo. Horo's play in the early game was actually pretty good. And that, I think, was one of the main factors that turned the tide for Unicorns of Love. Now, I do think that their late-game shot calling was questionable. I mean, in Game 5, they were doing all kinds of crazy shit. Like, Kepda Vizicachi just keeps trying to, like, solo this inhibitor instead of just waiting for the team to spawn. Like, he dies, like, twice doing that. I think it was Game 4 when they let Rocket Game 4
was ridiculous.
It was horrible late game. But let's not discredit Unicorns of Love in the early game, because in the early game they actually looked more focused than I think we've ever seen them before. And that's a real improvement. It wasn't about cheese. They weren't making random teleport plays or trying to dive in inane ways. Horo was legitimately setting up good plays, good dives, good plays onto Steve. Game 5 had some really good dives. So I think they have really improved.
I think you could make an argument that Horo was their best player for the series.
I don't even think it's an argument, really.
Like people were talking about, who was it? People were talking about about Heliosang and Power of Evil, but for me it was Haro. Like he really surprised me because
he surprised me too, and I've been the one. I've never liked.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say that.
I've never liked Haro, and I thought he played very well in this series.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. How surprised were you? Because I know you're not really a Haro fan, but
look, I think he's okay. I've never, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
he's all right, but
yeah, I mean probably the most average member to come out of that SKT S roster, I think.
Yeah, unquestionably, I think, unquestionably.
But yeah, the game one.
Let me ask you about this, Shakarez. First things first in game one. That you can't. Let me think. Where was it? Wasn't game one the one where Nuke Dog picked Anivia?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that.
Can you please tell me about that? Because here's the thing. I also can give you an update at any point in history about where Anivia's at, because Froggen just tweets it all the time if it's ever viable. And he always says it's not viable now. And we know he even picked it last season, last year rather. So he claims it's not viable. So what do you think Nuke Duck was thinking, picking Anivia into Victor?
Yeah,
in lane! In lane!
In lane, I'm not so sure about it, but I think... I can't exactly remember, but I don't think he got solo killed or ganked or whatever. He kept up in CS. I'm not entirely sure. But the Anivia here, actually, I believe Froggen said it was a good pick here. He tweeted it out, and LoL eSports put his tweet up.
Okay.
Like how Anivia works is I think Anivia is a really good counter to Sivir. Because with the wall and with her stun, she can stop the engage. Her stun actually is really tricky for Sivir to spell shield.
Because it procs twice or some shit, right?
Yeah, no, the slow portion comes in first. So if you spell shield, you'll spell shield the slow, and then he'll just reactivate the Q. Is it the Q? Yeah, it's the Q.
So, yeah.
Later,
Yes.
yeah, he'll reactivate the Q later and stun you. So this was actually, I was really intrigued by this because this use of Anivia was somewhat similar to what Dignitas Europe did in the DreamHack finals. You guys probably didn't watch that, but they played the final against a Portuguese team called Kick, which is basically the only half decent Portuguese team right now, I think. I don't really follow my country's scene, but they used kind of the same comp where they run Anivia with a hyper carry, and the Anivia can peel for the hyper carry, and she's also a counter to Sivir. So I believe Veteran drafted that on Dig EU back when they were at DreamHack because Broken Shard was in NA, something like that. But yeah, I thought it was really interesting. It didn't work out. I heard that Nuke Duck played it in scrims, so it must have worked out in scrims. It was an interesting composition. It had a lot of CC. It did multiple things. It was good at counter engage. You could do pick off with Elise and then Anivia following up, and you had enough protection for the Kog'Maw. So, it was one of those comps where it could have worked out and where Anivia could have looked decent. But I don't know how the matchup is mid lane against Victor. But I think he played it pretty well. Also, it's worth mentioning that the AP item changes benefited Anivia very much because Roa got buffed and she uses Roa. I'm not sure if he went tier, but I assume he went Roa tier. So both items he went for were buffed. Obviously, she goes for Def Cap. That was also buffed.
Yes, he went Roa tier, by the way.
Yeah, Roa tier. So he went Roa tier. Both items were buffed on Anivia, and that's a really substantial buff. And we actually tried Anivia here as well. We didn't use it, but Talkers used to be like an Anivia one-trick pony back in the day. So he plays at the Anivia really well. And all of her items got buffed. Roa got buffed, Tier got buffed. If you go for Leandries, which is a good item on her, also got buffed. So all three of the good items on Anivia got buffed. So she got a lot of a damage spike from those items. So I think it could have worked out. It didn't work out that game, but I think we could see more Anivia in the future. And that's the thing about the patches. The patches are going so fast that some teams aren't really figuring out all that what's viable and that you can use in the current meta. And I really don't agree with Riot doing like a huge patch before Worlds. Like 5.16 is going to be pretty huge. But
I really disagree with this too, because I think they're not giving enough time for champions to fall out of the meta naturally. We were already seeing in Korea a very large decline in the use of Sivir before
she got nerfed.
Completely shit on.
Yeah, and she's getting another nerf now in 5.16. She's like already on her way out, and they're like, Riot goes like, oh, nerf again. So I don't know. The patches have been too frequent, and this basically means like teams aren't allowed to have enough time to look at different things. And then there's the other thing, which is the teams that will qualify for Worlds are playing in a completely different meta than they will at Worlds, because like the Victor nerfs that are incoming are insane. Like, I don't think Victor will see play. I might be wrong, but like the nerfs to his hex score are pretty huge, and it also means like he has to go back to going for Morale-Nomicon, because the mana was nerfed, and all the stats on hex score were nerfed, and then that pigeonholes him into certain builds. He also can't go for early hex score upgrades anymore because he'll lose too much from it. So he'll probably just go like one hex score upgrade and then not go for the second. I don't know. It's too many changes before Worlds, and you can say the whole thing about adapt or die, but I just don't agree with it, because the teams that qualify will not be the same teams at Worlds, because they'll have to play another style.
Yeah, that's going to be really weird.
I don't know. It might be Riot just saying that EU and NA have a bigger chance with the meta changes, or Brazil. You know, they're buffing Mordekaiser, so you never know. Haha, memes.
Are they? To be determined if they are buffing him. In fact, by the way.
Yeah. It's hard to say, but like I think it's his Q. Like his Q is the 3-part. The Riot loves the 3-part interactions. Like it's a 3-hit thing where the third hit does like bonus 260% AP. So like you can legit like flash Q someone and you'll do 2k damage. So I don't know what Riot is doing in that regard, but maybe we'll see Mordekaiser at Worlds. Who knows?
I guess my biggest problem with it is they changed the meta, and I disagree with that. But my biggest concern is that these champions, because we're just simply not going to have pro play. No leagues will be going on. There will be no professional games. So how will we know what is broken at Worlds? There could be some crazy broken shit with all of these changes that only the pro players and the pro scene would show us, and we got nothing.
And it's an especially hard job for like whoever is on the analyst desk and trying to look at the compositions and saying, "Oh, this is strong. Oh, this is not strong." It's impossible for you to say, "Oh, this is a better comp than that one because this does this and that."
Well, there's a great historical example of this, which is that if you remember, if you don't look at any of the champions played, in history, if you go to Season 3 Worlds, it actually makes no sense how Royal Club got to the final of this tournament. Like, yeah, Uzi was super sick, yeah, we all remember all that stuff, but they weren't even a top 3 team in China. Then somehow they qualified. Then at the tournament, they beat OMG again. Then they made it all the way to the final, beating Fnatic. Now, one thing people forget is that they were the only ones to figure out how fucking broken Annie was when you had the right masteries set up and used it as a support. And so as a result, fans who only saw that one tournament to this day think Tabe was a really good support player, whereas actually he wasn't. He's just the only one who figured out how fucking broken this thing was. Like it's one of the rare cases I've seen where only one player and one team figured out a super broken pick, and literally right after that tournament, if you remember, was when Edward came back to Gambit and he was using Annie, and then everyone used Annie for the next month and a half and it was super OP broken. But one person figured it out at Worlds and got to the fucking final with it. So that's not a great situation. Like, yeah, great props to him for innovation, but how was anyone else meant to figure that out, you know?
Yeah, and this just means that this just might happen at a larger scale at this year's Worlds, it's going to be really weird. I mean, like, I was jokingly talking about Mordekaiser, but the thing they did about giving him, like, solo lane XP even when he's in dual lane...
the ghost dragon shit.
Yeah, and that too. But, like, one of the things they did for him is they're putting him... Even if you're in a dual lane with a support, you still get full XP. So I'm not sure, obviously, but if he's viable, you could see like hybrid lanes being really strong, like where you run Mordekaiser in hybrid lane with a support, and you run the AD carry top lane solo against their top laner, so the AD carry can punish. So like you run a Vayne, because Vayne is typically good against like a Shen or something like that, and you're running the Mordekaiser bot lane with the support because it's going to be good in a hybrid lane.
Listen,
so,
Shakarez, Riot doesn't like to embrace, they don't acknowledge that a meta exists, they don't like to force any kind of a meta, so that's why they're just making one champion specifically so it gets full XP in that sense, when the others don't, so.
It's also crazy how much that could affect things like lane swaps.
Exactly. Like talking about hybrid lanes.
They are not, and that's the most troubling thing, is that they will not have any information about pro lane swaps with that champion. If we just think about it, they just can't get data. So what the fuck is that, honestly?
Yeah, I looked at the changes and I didn't dislike them. I dislike the fact that they're being put now, because if this is for this was for preseason, I am all for it.
Sure, I agree.
I think it's great. That's when preseason stuff should happen. I mean, what are they going to do for preseason? Change the whole map? I don't know. Like, if they're doing these changes now, then preseason will have no changes. I don't know. I'm really confused about the timing on these, specifically.
So, okay, we got sidetracked a bit there. In the Unicorns of Love Roccat series, so Unicorns of Love won the first 2 games. Roccat came back in the third and fourth, and it was actually ridiculous they even came back. They had that one game where they were like super far behind, and they managed to come back.
The 4th game was ridiculous.
Did Roccat, even though they lost, did they actually give any kind of decent accounting of themselves, Shakarez?
I think they did. They could have done much better, honestly. I think they could have beaten Unicorns, and I think one of the big factors was we talked about Horo. He was an extremely large factor, contributing to UOL's wins and their...
Yeah, it wasn't even that Jankos had a bad series. He just got outplayed by Horo.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, one of his games, I think it was first or second game, where Jankos had a pretty bad game on Elise where he couldn't do anything. I think it was both games he played Elise, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, second and fifth, I think.
Yeah, one of the 2 games, first or second, he had a really bad early game on Elise, but other than that, he actually performed pretty well, but Horo was playing super well that series. I think that was like the determining factor. That is why Unicorns are going to the semis and not Roccat. But yeah, I think they showed up pretty strong, especially if you consider their season. They've been improving as the season has gone. They have the 2-0. They had the 2-0 over Origin in the regular split, and they were looking like the dark horse team in playoffs. But unfortunately, it didn't work out. I really wanted them to win because I'm probably gonna have some fanboys hate on me, but I don't want to see Unicorns of Love at Worlds. I don't want to see them representing my region. I'm sorry. I get to have an opinion, but I really don't like their style.
What do you mean? They're not going to represent Brazil. Remember, Bjergsen is an NA player. You are a Brazilian analyst.
Yeah, no, I'm a Brazilian analyst.
That's how it works, okay? So, okay, Monty, what as a final, because we're not going to have to talk about Roccat again for a while. What do you think of Roccat then overall then? Because obviously this should have been a series you can win. Fucking Unicorns with a brand new player.
I don't know. It's a really bad sign. I don't know if they can keep on with this roster any longer. Something about them just isn't working in terms of the synergy. I think they turtled really well in this series, but the fact that they couldn't really get it together in the early game was really odd and disappointing and not what you want from this team. I think they showed the one positive, I guess, they showed some mental fortitude coming back from 0-2 and making it at least a competitive series. But I don't know if Nuke Duck mid Corki is the answer to the problems that Roccat has. That's a rather antiquated pick right now, and I really don't think it's particularly strong. We also saw that they were pretty incapable of hitting necessary power spikes. Like, I don't even know what to say if, especially in Game 5, Nuke Duck and Mr. Rawless both have Trinity Forces on Corki and Kog'Maw, and Power of Evil and Vardex have 2 tiers, and you're losing in turrets. That's That's just
That's
awful.
not good. Yeah,
And
when you get
part of that was Horo playing really well, but that kind of power spike, man, that's ridiculous.
yeah, they were their map play especially was not on point.
Well, they
Not
just
on
don't.
point
They
at all.
don't even know how to group. It seems.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, the only time they can group is when they're forced to group in their own base, and when they actually grouped, they were doing okay.
Who would have thought that they could team fight?
I mean,
But
the
yeah,
thing is... Yeah, go.
I was gonna say that even their drafting looked better in this series than it did throughout the split, in my opinion.
That's not high praise for the old mid-corky Anivia picks.
Yeah, except for the mid quirky. I don't know what.
Here's
that
the
was.
thing. I even said this on the Vander show. The thing that had improved about Nuke Duck is he'd finally expanded to have this solid, this champion pool. He had his Varus was super sick. We never saw it. He never played Varus, even when it was open. Like, it was open in the last game, he didn't pick it. He never played it. That was his best champion. Then he had, like, Yasuo at the end he was bodying everyone on. No one was even banning that. That wasn't even being banned in this series. So he could have played that. What else? I mean, Azir, he was, like, half decent on and never saw that.
I mean, I don't even know why we never saw Azir in this series at all.
Yeah, Azir was nerfed, but he's still
He'll
in
really
a
good.
good spot. Yeah, with the Nashor's Tooth build, and
Instead, we
especially
have
now,
Nuke Duck playing Anivia and Corki.
the Anivia. I think the Anivia is fine. The Quirky is. I don't like the
The
Quirky at all.
Nivea is okay, come on, but you don't have to cheese when fucking Azir exists in this meta. You just pick the Azir and the Victor, and you win games.
Yeah, and like the new Azir build, like when you go like Nashor's,
So
and
good.
then somewhere in the build
And-
where you get Rylai's. If you get Rylai's, it's insane. Like the zone control you have, the team that is playing against the Azir with the Rylai's is always poked and zoned out, and they cannot engage.
And conveniently, you also have a good laning phase against Victor.
Yeah, which is something most champions do not have.
Yep.
To be fair, Victor priority was. I know in the West, like Victor priority is a bit different, but they could have early rotated Victor more times.
Of course.
But I guess
that's kind of what happened to you in the Brazilian finals, too. It was actually very apparent to me watching the Brazilian drafts that you guys take a lot of cues from Korea and what the
China.
champion priorities are.
Oh,
Yeah,
don't worry, Monty.
for sure.
There was also 0 Azir bans in the entire
I know.
series out of every single game. So
yeah, we had our Azir ban because Talker's plays a really good Azir. I think he had one ban. I'm not sure. Also, his Twisted Fate was constantly banned all series. He usually gets targeted. But yeah, we had Victor was played game 1, early rotated by them, and then game 2 early rotated by us, and then game 3 banned. So I guess if there's one thing I can argue is that at least we have more clear priority on Victor than EU and NA.
So here's the thing, okay? As we now set up to analyze this series, Fnatic vs Unicorns Alive, this is like that scene in Neon Genesis Evangelion Shakarez, where every time those angels attack, okay, that alarm goes off like, and they rush that little like Shinji kid into that fucking mech, and then out he goes to battle him. That's his job. He has to be woken up immediately and go do that. So like, as it comes into a series where Unicorns Love just 3-2'd someone. They just did the chaos style. They didn't really. They did a different style, but let's just say
do a very different style.
let's say they did the chaos style for the sake of the storyline here. So they're doing the same shit.
storyline.
Okay, it's the next episode, and then all the fans are ready to go. Oh, Monty, that means they're going to do another 3-2 with Fnatic. It's going to be really close, and they're going to give them problems and that. So you ready? Get in the mix. Right, go now. Unleash Monty.
Well, Fnatic last time, they didn't look so strong in the playoffs. I think this time around it's going to be a pretty straight-up bodying of Unicorns of Love. There's no reason to believe otherwise, honestly.
I don't know. Like, I'm.
Do you have
sort
a
of
reason,
scared-
Shakarez? Do you have a reason?
I'm sort of scared because I heard that Fnatic wasn't doing so well in scrims, but
Yes, we're back in
just
scrims
hope-
again. Scrim
I
life.
just, yeah, exactly, Scrimland. I just hope it's nothing more than bad scrims and they just stomp unicorns on it. Honestly,
Hashtag scrim life. That's where
Yeah,
we are
exactly.
again. Scrim life all day. So okay.
I just hope it's either a rumor or if it's true, it doesn't really matter.
Man, what does bad mean? Like they're losing some games, and then people are like, "Oh no, Fnatic lost a game." They're
Monty, do you want to hear
losing 70%?
I've got one for you here, Monty. Here's a great one because it will both make you realise that Fnatic is losing games and infuriate you for the circumstances we're in right now. So one of the teams who's done really well against Fnatic in scrims is Gambit, who have won best of fives against Fnatic in scrims, have wrecked them in scrims, have had like one of the best records of anyone. And that's like right as soon as that was exactly when the ban came in, like, you're out, forgiven, you're out. It's like, so you wanted an upset team, Monty, you'd say it's over. So how do you enjoy that information to find that out now?
Oh my.
I'm sad.
What that Gambit team could have been.
It would have been hilarious if Gambit actually won this season.
Oh, the best part is, Monty, all the teams say that in private. They're all like, oh, Gambit was getting way better, and they were probably going to get it together for the playoffs. Like,
yeah, Vander said that last time. I remember watching.
Over, so. And also, remember, they don't even have a chance to do the gauntlet shit, so it's even better, right? So
yeah,
it's all great.
Don't worry, man. Now we get to see Forgiven in Heroes of the Storm. It's really exciting.
Exactly.
I don't know. It's one of the saddest storylines for EU. Is that Gambit team not making it to playoffs, and then Forgiven not getting into playoffs because their star player gets banned. I don't know.
So there's also the only reason Shakarez even gave a chance that Unicorns Love could win here is because of scrims. I remember scrims, so Rockat's really good in scrims. INTZ is beating NA teams. I'm just keeping everyone up to date on the scrims here. This is Scrim Life, Scrimology 101. So. But here's the thing: when we come into this series now, there must what can Unicorns Love actually do to win a game? Do they have a style? Are there certain picks they can go to that give them a chance, Shakarez?
I don't think so. Honestly, I think apart from that scrim business, I think Fnatic wins this clear cut. Maybe like Horo can have like a super good early game and out jungle Reignover and like get Unicorns a win, but I don't see it. I don't know if there's much Unicorns can do. I definitely do think that for Fnatic, when Reignover isn't with his best jungle picks, he tends to be like out jungled by some of the junglers.
I think that's
true. Could happen. Could happen. But I don't know if Horo is going to be the jungler.
So okay, you just come in, you ban away Nidalee, you pick the Rek'Sai, and there you go. You've neutralized Horo.
Yeah, maybe.
Then
what
he
else
plays Olaf.
No problem.
Yeah, no. Yeah, he was talking about neutralizing Horo though, not Reignover.
Oh yeah. No. I think that.
Yeah, I don't think Horo is going to be the jungler to expose Reignover.
I mean, here's the thing. Here's one thing that's really bad about Unicorns Love is just look at the series they just played. So that should be a good series for them with positives in it, etc. Okay, one of the games they lost, they were super far ahead and managed to lose from. Then look at the fifth game. So you'd think, right, the fifth game, they were the ones who were clutch, who closed it out, etc. Do you remember the point, Monty, in the fifth game where they were up quite a lot? The other team is desperately turtling because they've lost 2 inhibitors. You know how it's like impossible to fucking take a fight and lose if you have 2 inhibitors. So what Unicorns Love does is they group around the Baron, and you think, right, well, this is exactly what you're supposed to do. This is Monty 101. The super minions are heading towards their base. You group at the Baron, you bait the Baron, you don't attack it. You attack so they have to fight you. Therefore, either you don't fight them and the super minions are going to go to their base, so they're going to have to make a choice. They're going to have to either go back to the base to clear the minions, or you're going to have to get the Baron for free. Or you can force the fight how you want it, basically. You can choose when you get it. So instead, you know what they do, Monty? They just start doing the Baron for real. Classic, right? Classic fifth game, macro decisions here, trying to close it out. 2015, 3 seasons of LCS. Let's just go and let's keep doing that. Season 2, right? Just go to the Baron. Hey, what even is that? That's the team who now has to play a Fnatic.
Yeah, their macro is really not on point. So I think Fnatic wins the series pretty easily. I hope so. I mean, if Unicorns win, I think it's confirmed they go to Worlds. So it's like nightmare.
Like, I made the joke that this means that people like Unicorns Love haven't even basically, they're like me on YouTube, because you know on the YouTube there's that watch later feature, and I'm really criminal for just picking watch later on stuff, but I forget to go in the queue and I just leave stuff there for like 6 months, like, and I've never got around to watching that interview, you know. They must do that with VODs, and so on their watch later, they're so far behind, they haven't even got to like spring 2014 OGN, so they're not even aware of how you play with Super Minions, like what you do in terms of baiting the Baron. They still haven't got to that, you know. They're still just trying to win a team fight. They're watching OMG VODs from like summer 2013 or something, you know. That's like their style instead.
No, man, Blaze. I think it was Blaze versus Frost that one of the teams got back from 3 inhibs, right?
Yep. That was the one where Captain Jack was super farmed on
KT did it against IM.
Yeah, KT did it as well. So they're looking at those VODs and thinking, we absolutely need Baron to close the game, so we cannot wait on minions. So that's probably where they're at the watch later list, I think. So I don't know, like their macro play is dreadful.
Okay, here's what I need you to do then. Monte and Shakarez, you both have to do this. If there was one player who could make the difference for Unicorns Love, like which player has a 20% better performance than we've seen, and that can maybe give him a chance, maybe not win the season, but give him a chance. Who are you picking?
Hylissang, if he can get a bunch of mechanical plays and maybe get some important catches that lead to things like Baron, that's what I would say. He's really he's mechanically very good, and he is a playmaking support player.
Yeah, or as
what if they take his Morgana and his Thresh?
That's the problem.
That's the worry.
That's the problem with EU Bunny Fufu, is that if you actually know he's good on those 2 champions and you take him away, it's not a problem anymore, you know. So shit, yeah. But don't do that though. Just keep giving him to him and just, oh my god, Thresh god, oh my god. Just let him do it. Just let him have it every time. That's the West for you, mate.
I think Hylissang is a good bet for those series, and I think if Haro can have like a fantastic series where he constantly outperforms Reignover and can get the team an early game lead, I mean, maybe, but then again, like, Fnatic knows how to fight from behind, and they're really good at team fighting, so I don't know if it would matter. So I guess like Monty's suggestion might just be better, because even if UOL wins early game, I think Fnatic can still claw back.
Because the problem when you're trying to pick out even a player who could do better is people would want to be like, why not Power of Evil? Here's the thing, Power of Evil's good, but you look at his whole history, look at last playoffs when they played last year. The thing with him is he doesn't go like Bjergsen mode where he just carries for like 3 games in a row and he could win the whole series. He has like the one game that's really good, then he has one game that's okay, then he has one game that's really good, then one game that's okay. He's actually quite on and off himself, you know.
Yeah, he is.
So he's not just going to like listen, he's comparable to Feb, but he's not going to like so drastically brutalize him like Bjergsen could to an NA player that it would make a difference, I don't think. So I think that one's a wash right there.
Yeah, he's not going to outperform Fabiven, I don't think.
Now let's talk about the NA region. So over in NA, that wonderful region, we had the first round of the playoffs, and it actually turns out in the first series, which was Tip versus Dignitas, like Monty was worried, like, oh, it's Dignitas, and Tip's just changed to Gate into the mid lane, and I was like, that doesn't even matter, mate. It is Dignitas, and yeah, who gives a fuck? It's still Tip, so don't worry about it. And that was. We're talking about body bags, mate. That was. Listen, I know, Monty. I know you're sad. I know you're sad that Unicorns of Love got through, and so not everything isn't right in the world, but it's pretty good that Dignitas got utterly on, right?
This wasn't as big of a shitting on as H2K versus Giants, in my opinion.
Yeah, it wasn't.
But Monty, you have to realise this is Dignitas. Why can't you just admit they're one of the best teams in the West? They're top of the league. They're winning. These games are all legit wins. Why can't you just admit they're really good? Proceed to go into massive slump at end of season with same roster while every other fucking team changes roster. Shit the bed, 0-3 out. Goodbye. Perfect.
By the way, can we talk about their bans during this series?
Go for it.
Because I don't know what the fuck they were doing.
Go for it.
This is the biggest mystery. So, pop quiz time, Thorin.
Yeah.
Who's probably the most important player on Team Impulse?
Rush.
Okay, great. So, what's Rush good at?
Lee Sin, Nidalee.
Okay, aggressive early junglers.
Yep.
So, if you're gonna ban Lee Sin and Nidalee, why the fuck don't you ban Elise too? Why the fuck don't you do that? Because they basically just give two aggressive jungle bans. Rush takes Elise, fucking laughs at him. And they did this not only in game 1, but in game 3 as well. I can't even begin to understand why you would ban those champions in this specific instance, because it forces Helios onto Echo, and then he gets Rek'Sai because they make a different ban in the 3rd game. Impulse doesn't ban the Rek'Sai.
Yeah. I mean, like, it was weird to watch. I mean, if you were going for 2 bans against Rush, I would have done Nidalee Elise. Or maybe Lee Sin Elise and leave the Nidalee. But I wouldn't leave the Elise up in the current patch. And knowing how Rush plays. No, there's no way you leave Elise up and think you can get away with it.
That is insane. And not only that, okay? Impact just plays Shen this whole fucking series.
Yep.
And, okay, so if I'm conceptualizing Impulse, and I know that Rush likes to dive towers early, and I know that he likes to be aggressive and make plays, Shen is one of the first champions, especially after game 1, that I ban out. Because this guy with the Shen shield and 2 globals is going to shit all over you in combination with Rush. This is the Team Impulse wet dream composition right here.
Yep. I don't know what they were thinking. I mean, you look at the games, you can just look go over them in 2-speed, and what you'll see every game is tower dive. Rush gets 2 kills.
And
tower dive. Rush gets 1 kill. And Impact is there. Yep. Every game.
With teleport.
Oh my god. It was insane.
I just don't even understand. Okay, so maybe, here's a thought. If I'm Dignitas, I realize, well, shit. Lee Sin is back in the meta right now. Nidalee's really strong in the jungle. So's Elise. If we're not going to use 3 jungle bans or prioritize the jungle, which they didn't, then I mean, Rush gets Elise on. He gets fucking Elise on red side.
Yep.
How does that happen? How the fuck does? Okay, so then I say.
And then they banned Maokai second game.
What's going on here? What's going on? Oh yeah, they've got this new guy. Maybe, just maybe, if I make Gate super uncomfortable, then we can win a series. Maybe that should be the strategy that we go for right here. Maybe we should try and ban out Gate.
Nope.
Just let him have what he wants, Monty. He's no worry. He's just a boy.
Yep.
Look at him. He's just a boy.
I was actually overall impressed with his play in the series.
Thought he did very well. Surprisingly,
he did very well. But he got comfort picks for him all 3 games. He got Victor, Lulu, and Azir.
I thought his Victor mechanics in his kind of debut games with TIP were pretty poor, but he really did improve. I have to say, maybe it was just stage nerves or something like that, but I thought that given the situation, he performed pretty admirably.
Yeah. I was really impressed because I saw the game.
Also, Dignitas blind picked Kassadin. I fucking forgot that too. Who does that?
Yeah, that's the other one. I just noticed. Yeah. You do not do that. Oh my god. Like the right there, second game, they decided to go for the Lulu. But they could have gone for literally anything that pushes Kassadin in. And what they did with Lulu, like they push Kassadin in and roam with Lulu. And then while Kassadin is at the tower farming, your Lulu is bot lane helping TIP get kills. So yeah, that was a weird one as well. Blinding Kassadin, because Kassadin has so many weak points. Kassadin is for counter picking, and even if it was a Kassadin Victor matchup,
I mean, Kassadin Azir is probably one of the better matchups you can have Kassadin with.
Yeah, exactly. But even Kassadin Victor, if the Victor player plays well enough and understands that he can push in, and he has enough wave clear to be safe, and enough vision control to be safe, he could just push the Kassadin in, roam, get some kills.
That's what Faker did. That's what Faker did versus Kuro when they played the Tigers, the Coup Tigers.
Exactly. So yeah, the bans were weird. Like the second game, they banned Maokai out of nowhere. Like, why isn't this a Shen ban? Are you scared of Impact's Maokai? I mean, I'd be more scared about his Shen. We know.
I would be 1 million more times scared of his Shen.
Yeah, his Shen is like he played Shen back in the day when Shen was strong. He knows how to play Shen. It's not like a new pick for him.
It's also just such a good pick for Impulse's style. You know, I don't think they're going to beat CLG. I think that CLG is not going to have this insanely poor draft versus Team Impulse's style.
Yeah.
So.
I'll tell you one thing. Out of the teams we scrimmed in NA, I was very impressed with CLG's macro, and the way they distribute their resources for the players, depending on what the player is on. So they know how to allocate their resources really well, and they know how to play the map really well. So I think CLG will take that series. Obviously, these scrims were a long time ago, but I don't think CLG magically forgot how to do these things.
Oh no, that's exactly leading into mine. I'm going to be the lone dissenting voice. I'm going to take CLD to lose that best of 5 for exactly the reason you just brought up. That they have a track record of magically forgetting how to do all the shit they did in scrims, how to do all the shit they did at the end of season, etc. So I trust in certain CLD players. Afromu getting his big game face on there. Never seen his game face. Well, his game face is sort of like a concerned thing of like, well, I guess I'm in the team at least, so shit. Who else? Who have we got? Smithy, trust in Smithy. He is a man you can double down on, and he basically with Smithy, it's like if he's the dealer and I'm playing blackjack, I can just hold on like a 12 with Smithy. He's going to bust somehow, you know. I just know it's going to happen. You know? I don't even need to make plays myself. Basically, when you're playing Smithy, you don't try and outplay Smithy. You let Smithy outplay himself. That's what you do. Okay? It's the old odd one solo queue philosophy. Okay, so that's all you do.
Yeah, I don't know. Like it's true. Track record wise, they have been known for choking in playoffs and forgetting what they actually know how to do, but I think this time will be different.
Like, here's the thing.
I'm not a CLG fan at all, just to preface that.
Shakarez, I'm telling you right now, Rush is going to get in that ass. He is going to, when he leaves Smithy after this series, Smithy's going to be a changed man. He's going to be curled up with his hands around his knees in the shower crying, thinking about what a horrible experience this was. You know, why can't I go back to XTG? Like, you know, the whole thing's going to be a horrible, horrible experience for him, you know. And so just look forward to it, my friend. Because here's the thing. If you're CLG rather, you should probably do what Dignitas should have done. Just use all those bans on Rush. It's true. Ban them all out. But if you do so, then surely you just give up every power pick in the universe to every other Impulse player. So it does take away the biggest strength, but you have to give up a lot to do it.
Yeah, and then like if you ban Elise and Evelyn, Elise and Elise, Nidalee, I don't know, Rush can probably play a very good Evelyn and still destroy you. He can still go for tank junglers. He can still go for Rek'Sai and go like Warrior Rek'Sai, or even Cinderhulk. And I don't know. I don't think you can ban Rush out. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think it's like you can ban some of his champions to telegraph his next pick. Like if you ban Elise and Nidalee, there's a pretty high chance he'll go for either Rek'Sai or Lee Sin, right? And that telegraphs their comp or what they're gonna play, how they're gonna play. But like fully trying to ban him out, I'm not so sure that works.
So you know what? Fuck it. I'm taking tip for that series there, boys. Now let's switch over. So you're both taking CLG there. You will both. Well, we'll see. You can take that. We'll go over to the other match now. It's the Faith Age. It is. Did you see when I did that tweet a while ago, Monte? Yeah. Where I was in that hotel. Yeah, I just checked into a random hotel for like a day before.
I saw that.
And then I was looking through like that booklet that they give you in the hotel. It says like, you know, like restaurants and stuff. Then I go to it. It says places of worship. I can't even believe this. This is in Columbus, Ohio. Okay. And it just says Temple of Faith CLG. I was like, is this even real life right now? Am I in like is this the universe's way of showing me that I'm in a fucking narrative structure here? Like, this is actually a script or something and I'm in a show right now. That's like the fucking writer giving me a little clue there, like, get out now, there's a way out of this, like some Philip K. Dick novel or something.
I'm sorry, you're not actually likable enough for them to make a Truman Show style documentary about you, so I don't think you have to worry about that.
I don't know about that. I reckon my life would be like a good sequel to True Detective, but just with me going around Me and Richard Lewis, basically. It's called True Journalist, and we're going through the world. It's a corrupt thing but we're just trying to get our man, you know. So okay. In the other matchup, we had one where I was actually wrong, because in this other one, TSM played Gravity, and TSM won reasonably convincingly. As in, it was still 3-1. Gravity did win game 1.
Game 2.
Game 2. There was times when Gravity looked all right otherwise, but overall TSM was like the better team. It was pretty clear in this best of 5.
Yes.
Yeah.
I actually think that TSM's game plan going into this series was really impressive. I think that they basically had an insanely good read on Gravity. And Gravity, if we think about them, Keen will do these like cheese anti-carry picks like Urgot or Jarvan or whatever, and suppress the enemy mid laner's gold. But instead, for the first 3 games, Bjergsen simply goes for very safe utility laners in Lulu and Orianna. And what have I been saying forever? Altec is the only damage threat on Gravity. If you kill Altec,
you win.
Gravity dies. That's it. They can't do anything else. So, what do? Lulu Olaf to run at Altec and murder his face. And they did a great job at doing that. I think that it was a really well-designed composition. I think the TSM coaching and analyst staff should get some very good props for this. And it was very well-tailored. Sivir, Lulu, fucking Dyrus on Olaf, just all over the ass of Gravity.
Yep. And like, just as a side note, I'm pretty sad to see Dylan leave, their analyst. I think he's really good. He was with TSM for over a year, and basically, like, I talked to him about it before he announced it. Basically, what actually happened was what he said on the tweet longer. Okay. It isn't another story. Yeah, like with Reggie coming in, he kind of lost space because there's already Loco Doco and Parf. But any team that's looking for an analyst would be dumb not to get Dylan, because I think he's a really smart guy. We sometimes discuss game stuff whenever we're both having questions, or whenever we both need a second opinion, and I think he's a really smart guy. But yeah, TSM's drafting this game. The only thing I guess I didn't like was the lack of victor priority from both teams.
Well, okay. But
I guess specifically, I was gonna say, this was I think this was a specific tailored comps against Gravity, and in the semifinals, TSM will show the victor and will show the victor priority.
They're not gonna. Yeah, this is the when we talk about this series, I think it was smart, and we know Bjergsen's a good victor player. If the series were to start going badly for TSM, I think they would have just switched over to let Bjergsen play Victor and we'll win the game. And I think they would have won the game that way too. But I think that they thought this was going to work. It worked in game 1, had a bit of a hiccup, and then they got all the champions back in game 2. And Gravity, come the fuck on. Why are you banning Diana?
Yeah, they've banned Diana all series.
It's like they don't even know. Just ban the one champion that can get back onto Altec's nuts no matter what happens. Ban that fucking champion.
For me, what was weird was TSM game 2. They went for the Orianna, and they had the Lulu available. I don't know if it's because the Lulu does poorly against the Urgot. I don't know the matchup, but they struggled a lot because they didn't have the Lulu and they didn't have the Sivir the second game, and both were open actually for TSM. But even weirder is Gravity. You know that Dyrus just played 2 games on Olaf, and he is absolutely destroying you. And you know that usually, unless it's an off game and Keen goes off and just hard carries, usually the only damage threat on Gravity is Altec.
Yeah.
Okay. Why the fuck would you put Altec on Ashe, knowing that an Olaf pick can appear? I was so like, oh my... I like, this third game, I was watching it live. I watched the draft, I saw the Ashe, and I was like, oh my god. we're gonna see the Olaf. The Olaf gets locked in. I'm like, I close the game. I open it like 20 minutes later or 25 minutes later, and I'm like, yep, this was totally gonna happen.
That was the most mysterious draft of all time for Gravity. Like, I don't even know what to think about that.
They have no damage.
They have no damage
whatsoever.
And oh man, I have to talk about Keen too. Okay, where was all this cheese we were promised from Gravity in the playoffs?
I mean, had his Urgot that one game?
Yeah, they blind pick Urgot not once but twice. Why the fuck would you do that?
Yep.
Come on, Keen is not a useful player. The anti-carry stuff, it's bad. It's just bad. Why would you try and have a shutdown player? You know how I want my players to shut down other people? By playing Victor and nuking them out of the game. That's what I want.
See, anti-carry, Monty, is like, it's up there with Chaos Theory for you. It's like it's basically ways to rationalize things working that are bad.
Yes. Fucking terrible.
So there's some other players. Listen, first of all, you got to give props. Yeah.
I was just gonna say that, like, the anti-carry can work in an off game, like 1 game out of like 10.
Yes.
Sometimes you have the counter pick and you go for the Urgot mid, and you win that matchup. Like when he played it against Zed, like he knew he could win that matchup. That was a specific situation. But stop trying to force it every fucking game. It's really annoying.
Basically,
and stop blind picking it.
Yeah, that too.
Keen, stop trying to make Urgot mid a thing. It's not going to be a thing.
It's not a thing.
So on one hand, you have to give Dyrus obviously a lot of props that not only were they able to come up with this strategy of the Olaf, but obviously he could play it. Now it turns out, for anyone who hasn't followed League of Legends history, before Dyrus got made into this fucking tank bitch who just played utility shit top, he used to be able to play stuff as like Olaf was in his wheelhouse back then in Season 2. That was the sort of stuff that the top laners played back then. So while on one hand you have to credit, like, not only could TSM use this Olaf approach, but Dyrus could actually do it. Like, you have to be able to execute the strategy as well.
They pulled it off too.
That's all. Yeah,
it's great that they pulled it off because that means they really gave their opponent something to think about. Like, Team Liquid now actually has to consider this. And I think we're going to see TSM try it at least once in the upcoming series versus Team Liquid. And if they lose, again, they can always go back to Bjergsen plays Ahri, Bjergsen plays Victor, and try and win that way. I don't think it's going to work versus Team Liquid, but it wouldn't surprise me if they gave it a shot.
Yeah, and there's another point to be taken about that, is that TSM is actually looking like a team that has more than one threat, because we know Wild Turtle isn't really at his best point in the career. So maybe if they can play around Dyrus, they have different strategies lined up. I don't know.
Okay, but yes-ish. I think we need to see more from Dyrus. I was happy he played Gnar in the last game, and he did well in the split push with that. But at the same time, we're talking about Gravity, that a team that I've been saying for a long time has been really overrated, and it has not very many dimensions to it. And we really can't say that same thing. Team Liquid, on an individual player level, is much more skilled than TSM.
Yeah, and they should. And right now, I think Team Liquid should be much more ahead than they actually are. I think they're ahead. They might just finish up being the #1 seed for NA, but I think, like, with the individual talent they have, they could be so much better.
Yes, well, that comes down to their team fighting is very poor. They make missed Baron calls. I don't know if it's just the language barrier in that team between Korean and English or what's happening, but they split on Barons all the time. They have very sloppy team fights where players will just go one by one into die multiple times. Their laning phase is good. Their skirmishing is strong, but I mean, this is not a team that plays with a high amount of macro. We compared them to Origin earlier, except I think Origin is actually better at the macro.
No, Origin is better at macro. Yeah, for sure.
So here's
because Origin has games where they don't play the macro as well, but it's not always. They have games where they can play it well, and Team Liquid has been failing the macro aspect.
Yeah, and the thing about Origin is that they can close a lead most of the time.
Yeah.
So the Fnatic game excluded, I think when I watch Origin and they get a good lead out of the skirmishing, it's when they fall behind that I think Origin has some big issues. And when we look at TL, we've seen them have more games than they should with massive gold leads, and look at the TL Team Impulse game that happened.
Oh
that
my
was
God, that game.
one of the most ridiculous near throws I've ever seen.
I was like, yep, okay, they threw this, they lost this, and then when they won, I was actually like, people were like, oh, what an amazing game, and I was like, no, they shouldn't have been. They shouldn't need to be able to be. They shouldn't need to close the game like this. They could have closed it cleanly. 3 inhibitors, whatever. They should have closed it 20 minutes ago. That was not a good game of League of Legends.
It was awful.
So one of the things about that series, though, Gravity TSM, that tilted me, Monty, is it actually reminds me of the series, the very last split that was in the first round, where TSM played Tip, and I also picked Tip to beat TSM there. If you remember, both teams had almost an identical thing where, first of all, neither played anything like they did during the split. They changed differently. And secondly, both teams have a star jungler who just inexplicably does none of the shit that made him a star jungler. So, Move has won like MVP or whatever, no, Rookie of the Season, okay, in this split. Obviously would even be an MVP candidate considering how well Gravity did. So in this series, what's the champion when? Because remember, Move arriving was what made Gravity go to the top of the league. That was the timing of when they went to the top. Okay, what was the champion that he did it all on initially? Do you remember, Shakarez?
I think he had really good Nidalee games.
Yep, it was Nidalee. Yep. He was the Sightstone first
Nidalee and Rek'Sai.
Yeah,
So,
I was gonna say Rek'Sai. I wasn't sure if it was.
So here's the thing. So in this series, he plays Nidalee 0 times. Now, in the second game, TSM picks Nidalee, okay. After that, they only ban Nidalee in game 4. He doesn't play Nidalee at all in the entire... Even when it's open. Instead, he plays 2 games of Eve, which were fucking appalling, and 2 games of Elise.
Which are not very good either.
I mean, the sick thing about people who play Eve in this meta, when so many times it goes badly, is when it goes badly, it literally is like that shit joke, like, yeah, the jungler was invisible. Like, that's literally what happens, and this is supposed to be a fucking guy who's one of the best junglers in theory in the NA region. He didn't show up in this series.
Evelynn is one of the champions that really needs to be well executed. I'd say she's harder to put into a comp. Not necessarily put into a comp, but execute. She's harder to execute than all the others because so many things can happen. Like if they decide to do 4VO, you lose your early game pressure. There's so much things that can happen to an Evelynn. If you try to flank and you don't get a good flank, the team can burst you. It's really hard to execute a good Evelynn. Like if you're not a really, really, really good player, you won't be able to execute that Evelynn too well.
I think that's pretty much all we need to say about that series, except shout outs to my boy Bonnie Fufu. You had a good split, but once again, you saved my ass there, mate, because that bet was just coming up, and you had to come along and deliver another classic playoff series. See, that's the thing. Meanwhile, Xpecial, mate, is going to be winning this LCS, so...
To be fair, I don't think Xpecial is at his strongest point right now.
They're both quite comparable as players, to be fair. But
yeah, Xpecial has been underperforming quite a bit, but I think he can change it around for these playoffs.
Well, we'll see. I mean, that's the thing. This is his opportunity to do it because some of his anti-play recently has been pretty damn questionable, and he hasn't really looked mechanically on point. But we'll see if he steps up to the plate and can actually do something in these playoffs. The other thing. What was I going to say about Gravity? There was something else I wanted to bring up.
Haunts is overrated as fuck, and everyone was on his dick all season, and then he just sort of disappeared.
But Thorin, LS said Gravity would be the best team in NA. What happened?
He just probably hoped they would because he used to coach them.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, I'll give LS props. At least he made a prediction before the games happened. Half of those Twitter analysts who their whole job, they're trying to prove to everyone how great they are analysing games, they don't make predictions. They just tell you after the game who won and why. Well, that's the skill. That's definitely a skill. But if you want to talk shit on people who do predictions, let's see your predictions, everyone. So you guys pull out what you had from Tip TSM last year and what you had from Gravity. Let's see all your predictions and the reasons why, and let's see who was right. Okay. Because a lot of people I've noticed like to just always be right. Basically,
or
Twitter analyst.
Or just calling a prediction without any reason.
Yeah, that's what I hate as well. Basically, people who are Twitter analysts, who, by the way, might have expert knowledge, because they don't ever want to be seen to have been wrong, they remind me of this great Hemingway quote about critics, where he said that critics are men who just sit on the side of the battle and shoot whoever survives. That's what a critic is. He doesn't take any part, and he just waits until the other guy's worn out and just kills him, like the winner. That's what Twitter analysts are like. Like, they're just right every time. Yeah, we can rewrite every time if you never have to put any skin in the game, mate. So step up to the plate. So, okay, in this semi-final, who is going to win, TL or TSM?
Oh, wait, I had one more thing to say about Gravity.
Okay, here we go. He recovered.
What is going on with Gravity's lane swaps? They are terrible. Yeah. And this is another thing. Gravity's lane swaps have been bad. Also, props to TSM, empowering Dyrus, because you pretty much bank, if you get the lane swap, that Dyrus is going to be ahead of Hansar, and then that Olaf is going to be absolutely unstoppable. So that was yet another layer to the brilliance of TSM's planning for this game. I think they did a wonderful job. I think it's a really fun series to look at from a analytics standpoint because of how smart their draft was.
They had 2 games where they lane swapped, right? I believe it was 2 games where there were lane swaps. But yeah, Dyrus ended up being ahead in those lane swaps every time. So I don't know.
Who's going to win the semi-final, Shakarez?
I'm gonna have to go with TL. I'm obviously first there's bias, but secondly I think TL is looking better. To be fair, TSM is looking better as well, so it could be close. But I think that TL just like beats them individually, and then if they manage to not be stupid with 10k gold leads and close the game like normal teams do, they'll go to the finals easily. But I don't know. I think I think apart from Phoenix, everyone else is the better individual player.
Yep.
on Team Liquid, and Phoenix isn't that far behind of Bjergsen to make that much of a difference. So
I mean, I don't know about that, but okay. The rest of it, we're with United set the way there. So here's the thing. That's the problem, is that it's going to be hard for them to have a strategy like what they did with Dyrus this time, because how is that going to work against Quaz? Like, and also the team of TL is just better overall. So the thing is, I actually think this is the series where my original storyline kicks in again. This is the Bjergsen series. He has to be a fucking god in this series for Team TSM to win. So I think this is going to be a handily won series by TL.
Yeah, I'm going to say 3-1 for TL. But yeah, unless like Bjergsen goes absolutely god mode, I don't see it happening.
And even then, we've seen him do that in the season and them lose games. That still happened before. Yeah, exactly, it's not like it's a guaranteed win like it used to be like a year and a half ago. You know,
it's not enough.
Monty, you're taking TL to win that?
Absolutely.
Okay, so thanks to everyone talking about fucking Brazil and Chita regions, we now have to literally bang out these other Asian regions quickly. So all we'll do is predictions, okay? We don't have a whole lot of time for Korea and China, etc. So,
well, we're going to have a show next week before the playoff. We only have to talk about the first round of playoffs for Korea.
Okay, so that's what we'll do.
It's KaBuM, NaJin. That's what we have to talk about.
So KaBuM plays NaJin in a best of 5. Now, Monty.
Best of 3, actually. It's a wild card match.
Yeah, best of 3. Why did they change that? Did they change that?
I don't know. I'm not a fan of it either.
Lame. Oh my God. Is it best of 3 the whole way?
No. It's just best of 3 for the wild card.
Okay.
It's
so
called,
just for this one.
Why is it called wild card? Is it
because they changed it to 10 teams this season, so they added another round of playoffs so that it's 4 versus 5 instead of 3 versus 4. So that's what they're doing. I don't know why they're doing it. I don't really like it, but there you go.
So okay, now it's a best of 3. Maybe that makes things sexier. Monty, who's going to win, KaBuM or NaJin?
I think NaJin's going to win.
Why is that?
I think KaBuM has a lot of weakness in the early game. We actually saw NaJin versus KaBuM in a best of 3 recently. That NaJin, it was a very swingy series. KaBuM stomped game 1 with Kuro's Yasuo, but the other 2 games were completely. I mean, KaBuM just got dominated, and legitimately, right now, there are players such as like OQ that are looking a lot better. Goong still has his problems, but I think that even then they turned in a relatively decent series against SK Telecom.
Yeah, and Watch wants to go to Worlds. It's Worlds time for Watch.
Again,
I don't know.
by the way,
I don't like
Shakarez.
much.
Watch is historically, he's also in the Hyanan category. He's a little spider monkey holding on to, in his case, it's the top laner every time. He holds on to that top laner, hugs into him. Watch out, I'm going through the brush now. Hold on. And then they go through and he gives him some little fruit at Worlds later. So Watch has got no saying whether he's going to Worlds, mate. That's irrelevant. He has to just sit back and go, wow, whoever's driving the car this time's doing a fucking bang-up job. Take me where I need to go, please. He's in the back, mate.
I read someone on Twitter saying that Watch makes his top laners look good. I don't agree at all. Like, I think Duke is like super elo held.
No, here's the thing, Shakarez. I said this.
Oh my God.
Here's I made this tweet, okay, because I think I phrased it the best way. He's in the most confusing elo hell, because normally elo hell means you're with shitters. He's with loads of good players, and it's still elo hell. So it's like his prison is like the most comfy prison ever. Amazing beds. The jail, it doesn't even have bars. You're allowed to just freely walk around. The jailers are just cool as fuck. They're awesome guys. There's smuggling weed in for you, porn, whatever you want, but it's still prison. You can't get out.
No. Also, that's not true. The thing about his prison is, okay, it is true that
he has day release or something every now and then.
The thing about his prison is that it goes even deeper than that, because he keeps thinking, because they keep telling him that he could be released from said prison at any moment. In fact, the gates might just magically spring open, and there is a mansion there waiting for him with like $1 million and 7 hot models in it, because we know if NaJin actually ever got good, that they would be a really serious contender for Worlds.
Yeah,
right?
They would.
So
They would.
that's the most hilarious thing about his prison in particular.
Well, he actually gets a day release every now and then, Monty. Every like 2 days a week, he's allowed to go live in the free world. He's a really successful businessman there, But then every now and then, it's random as to when they call him back. He's just called back into prison, like he's back in again, and it's indeterminate. You don't know how long you're going to be there for. So, who do you think is going to win this series, Shakarez? NaJin, KaBuM?
Yeah, I think NaJin as well. Especially like since these last weeks, I wouldn't say last week, Goong actually looked decent. He still has his problems.
Goong's like the Skara thing. Shakarez, here's the thing about Goong. Goong looks really good until he doesn't. Okay, so he's doing really well. He's doing awesome. He's winning games, and then all of a sudden, he transforms. Okay, Goong is the guy where he's an undercover warden, and he's one of the members, and he's trying to actually organize the prison break. And then when you get to the hole where you're going to all exit and like, oh, now we go past the 10:10, the guard looks away. He suddenly rips off his prison uniform and he was the warden all along. That was the thing. And the prison breaks over and you're all going for even longer in the prison now. That's the thing, So also, earlier on, this really young like guy who had a lot of spirit and fight called Tank, he actually wanted to try and help them out of prison, but Goong shivved him and said that he was the undercover warden, but it turned out Goong was the whole time. So here's the thing. I think this will be closer than you guys think. Especially because it's a best of 3. Since it's a best of 3, I think KaBuM can definitely get a game.
It's still NaJin.
It is still NaJin. Yeah.
NaJin can fall down.
I don't think this is locked up.
I think this is a 2-1.
I think it's a 2-1 for NaJin, but
so okay.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair.
Let's just quickly. Here's the problem. In LPL, they've got a gang of games going on super quick. So let's just do some quick predictions there. So in the quarterfinals, Snake plays LGD. Who wins, Shakarez?
I want to say Snake, but I think LGD will take it.
I think given LGD's current performance,
LGD is like they get to playoffs. It's like it's playoffs time, boys, and they magically like they decide they want to be good again, and they start winning everything. So I think LGD will win, and their set against VG was pretty convincing to me.
Yeah, the problem for LGD is they're going to be playing against EG in the semis. Aside from that, I think LGD is going to to be really good. So I'm taking them to win. Who do you think, Monty? You're taking LGD?
Yeah, LGD. Just based on their current form.
Oh, is it? Why is it LGD versus?
It's no, Thorin. It depends on whoever the highest seed remaining is.
Exactly.
Okay.
I was gonna say.
Or the lowest seed, actually. It's the lowest seed. The brackets. Well, the way it's going to work out is that the lowest remaining seed will play LGD.
So who was that?
Yeah. Also, Monty, your camera is looking weird again.
It just went
focused.
Yeah.
Okay, so forget that then. Okay, so VG versus IG. Who wins that, Monty?
Not the viewers.
Remember, VG beat OMG in a series, Monty.
Shut up.
So who wins that? Doesn't matter actually who wins that, by the way. That's the thing. It's like The Rock is who I should be calling in now. It doesn't matter who wins that series. It actually doesn't. It's irrelevant. They're both dog shit, so don't worry.
I don't think it matters. I mean,
Vici just lost. Now they did surrender these games, but they lost 3. They only won 1 game against LGD, and one could argue that LGD may have been trolling during that game. And under those circumstances, the 3 games they lost, they surrendered all 3 of those games, but they lost in like 22 minutes 3 times in that series.
Wait a minute, 22 plus 22 plus 20, 666. Oh my god, that's actually not even right. It's just 66. But listen. Sometimes I have to reach for these ones, Monty. It's like a rapper, you know. You've got this awesome rhyme, and then you go to the end, and you just like, I guess pen sort of rhymes with pin. I'll just go with that for that line there. You have to reach sometimes. Who do you think will win this series, Shakarez?
I think IG wins. I don't know, like their set versus OMG gives me some hope for Vici.
The part that doesn't make sense about the OMG series, mate, is how the fuck that Peng guy was doing well against Cool.
Oh, and Shuan. I mean, they just have bad.
Because IG rookie should be tearing fucking Peng's ass up.
Yeah, he should. I think he should. And yeah, I think I can't remember Vici's jungler name. Is it World 6?
World 6.
Yeah.
Because you know, Danny's a top laner now. You know that's a thing.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my god, it's the saddest
he was doing all right. He was doing all right.
Shut up.
He had some okay games. That's his future now, Monty. Top laner for life.
Dandy top laner is so I don't know.
It's sad, isn't it?
I hope
this is what China
it's
did
depressing. It's depressing.
I hope he qualifies for Worlds, just so that all the Western fans again only get to see him in one tournament, and they're like, "This Dandy guy was well overrated. Why were you sucking his dick? He is not even good." That would be beautiful. So okay. So
but yeah, I think IG wins. Vici gives me some hope because of their set versus OMG. I haven't fully watched the set versus LGD, but if it was like
it was
Monty
a
was
thorough
saying,
destruction of Vici.
Yeah. Okay, I lost my hope. Then I think IG wins.
So without
I want IG to win.
Their main carry roles, mid and AD, they're really
terrible.
bad. They're terrible.
Yeah, they are.
And their top lane is Dandy, as we already mentioned. So that's the bright spot. Is the top lane Dandy? So okay.
Bye.
We're not going to run every other match, so just give me a rough idea. Who do you think's gonna who are going to be the best teams in this LPL for you? Like for example, Shakarez, do you think ChowGu can make it? Can they make it into the finals and impress?
So I'm a ChowGu fan. I really like watching.
Dirty ChowGu lover.
Yeah. To be fair, I've been watching LPL since the beginning of the split. I haven't just joined the hype train. I really like them, but I don't think they'll make it. I think it's gonna be obviously EDG, LGD, and Snake.
You know what my dream is? Just to see the West burn, I dream of ChowGu and NaJin making Worlds, and then Origin and TL make it there, and then they just it doesn't matter if you're the lead, we win anyway. It all ends with a team fight, right, mate? Yeah, that's how the game ends. Then we win. Sorry, it doesn't matter what you did in the first 20 minutes.
For those people, I think ChowGu's team fighting is amazing. I do. I think it's
it is. But it's world class.
But ChowGu against a team that also has very strong team fighting, they make an insane number of poor decisions in games for seemingly random reasons. And I just look at teams like LGD that have more refined, or EDG that have more refined macro play and still have strong individual players and still have strong team fighting. Although I will say that LGD's team fighting is it's not as good as some of the other teams.
Yeah. But Snake, ever since they got what's his name, ZZR? I think, before ZZR, I'd probably give it to ChowGu. Now, I don't know. With ZZR and who's playing AD for them, Martin. I think they're looking like the stronger team, and they'll make it to Worlds. And they're a fun team to watch. Snake is a really fun team to watch.
I like watching Snake. I think that trade was really intelligent.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to see 4 teams, 4 Chinese teams going to Worlds, and seeing EDG, LGD, Snake, and Xiaogu. I'd love to see all those 4 teams at Worlds.
I want Xiaogu to go to Worlds because, like Thorin, I think watching Xiaogu play against teams in groups would be absolutely fucking hilarious. It would be so funny. They create very entertaining games. Swift is
a god.
He's not a god, dude. He's kind of
he's a demigod.
He's kind of an idiot savant. He knows how to click them buttons real good, but he doesn't know necessarily when to click them buttons real good, and he often just dies for no reason.
Yeah. But I love watching Swift. Like,
it's fun to watch.
Sure, he's sometimes over aggressive, but I love watching him.
I call him the Korean amazing.
I'll go from I'll go from god to demigod.
Okay. So do you have any final words for this episode, Shakarez? Run out of time. Got any final words for us, mate?
Thank you for inviting me.
Watch also, Brazil.
Congratulations to Monte's team for making it to NALCS. That was a pretty good series to watch. Well, I was watching Game 5. I was like, oh, can they make it? Because I thought Coast would win because Shrimp would 1v9, but they performed pretty well, and I was pretty happy because we scrimmed Renegades and they were super nice with us. They were a super nice bunch, so props to them. And since now we're off the world,
now you had to go and ruin it all. So you told me before. Like, Monty said, they're doing well against NA teams. So I thought, wow, they're doing well against TSM and Gravity. Really, all that happened is... Monty, allow me to tell reality here. What clearly happened was they came to NA, they just shit all over Renegades every time. And Monty was like, wow, cognitive dissonance kicking in. This team must be really good. This Brazilian team is top-notch. There we go. We got to the bottom of it, Monty.
we played both Challenger and LCS. We didn't play Gravity or TSM. Gravity, actually, I think the manager said yes, but then either the players or COP didn't want to. So I don't know. But yeah, I was gonna say now that my team is off of World Contention, I don't have as much of a workload.
Okay.
So I'll be doing some video content, probably some VOD review, and a look into the games before qualifying to Worlds and in Worlds. I want to get back to my YouTube shenanigans. So yeah, I guess I'll plug in myself. If you guys want to follow me on Twitter, my Twitter is at Shakarez. It's SHAKAREZ, and it's actually a name of a village in Afghanistan, but that was totally unintentional.
Well, in many ways, the destruction of INTZ was much like an accidental blowing up of a wedding party in a village in Afghanistan of civilians. So, maybe that's the note we'll leave on. That's the metaphor. That's the end of this episode. Yeah. Thanks to Off Draft for all the money.